Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen tries to steal my boyfriend while on our vacation. So my friends and I are going on a trip next month to Miami, Florida. We've been planning it for about a month now, and originally it was going to be a float trip within our state, and with 16 people we go to college with. Before everyone screeches about the lockdown, we've all had our shots. One of my friends in particular, Jay, has a very specific work schedule. We worked around this and got days of the week that are less convenient for the majority because we wanted to include her. She refuses to take off work for the trip despite going on multiple week-long vacations with other people since April. Still though, we did our best to accommodate her. On New Year's, we all stayed on campus for the break, so her, myself, two friends, and my boyfriend, A, all spent the night together drinking and playing games in my apartment since my roommate had gone home. That night, she made a passing comment about how she thought my boyfriend was hot and she would love for him to be her New Year's kiss, and I chalked it up to drunken confessions and ignored it since she hadn't made any moves. At one point, she did fall into his lap, but he removed her quickly. Now for this trip, we had to seek out accommodations. After changing the initial float trip because I and our other friend, S, wanted to go to Florida, we downsized our group to just me, S, J, A, and A's friend. We were looking at a 3-bedroom apartment on Airbnb with enough beds to have everyone sleeping comfortably. While discussing sleeping arrangements with S and J, J decided to half-joke about how she wanted to sleep in the same room as A, and that I wouldn't be mad since we've gone on breaks to see other people before. Note, A and I have been dating for 3 years at this point. We've broken up to see other people once before in our first year when we went on summer break because our hometowns are too far away to see each other. We were 18 and 19 at the time and haven't done it again since. I expressed discomfort at this joke and she kept brushing it off, but I really don't trust her. While talking with S privately, she also said it was a bit weird. I ended up shifting the dates of our stay and plane tickets by 1 day, which would prevent Jay from being able to attend due to her work schedule. At first, I just said it was because these were cheaper dates, but she seems to have picked up immediately that it was done because of what she said. She's now calling me a manipulative jerk. S said it was a bit unexpected, but she understands why I did it as well as why Jay is mad. A has no idea because we haven't involved him in the situation. He just knows the new dates and is fine with them. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. Why would you even be friends with someone like her in the first place? It's obvious she doesn't respect your relationship. The only thing to do with people like her is cut them out of your life. Guy messes with his ex-girlfriend at the bar until her new boyfriend shows up. Oh, what a satisfying Friday I've had. I work in a sports bar and grill in a reasonably small town. We're a popular hangout for the local college kids as one of the only spots with a full bar and some decent grub. I love this because, contrary to popular belief, young people are usually the better tippers and just all around more pleasant to their servers than the older crowd. I don't know if it's because they've worked service jobs more recently or if they were just raised better, but it's noticeable and I really enjoy serving most of them. One drawback though is that they're certainly more dramatic than the older crowd. Usually if my middle-aged patrons bump into someone they know, there's a quick hello and it's done. With these college kids, it's often either the best thing ever to spot your friends out and they get loud and excitable, or there's some sort of rift between the groups and they get loud and excitable. For example, we had a college-aged couple that came in a bunch almost every weekend that then split up. I'd see the guy from time to time getting loaded with his buddies, but the girl stopped coming in altogether. I figured she only ever came because he was bringing her there. Friday, we were having a ladies' night and she comes in with a small group of girls. There were maybe 5 altogether. They sat at a booth and ordered some cheap drinks and kept to themselves. Fast forward like an hour, this guy and his buddies come in. Without realizing, they take seats at the bar directly adjacent to this girl in her booth. I didn't recognize them as the couple at first, but the guy spotted her and let's just say it became immediately clear who left who, despite what he said. He started in with all these passive-aggressive and loud comments to his pals about how he was glad he had dropped her and she was weighing him down, looking desperately over his shoulder, hoping that she had overheard him. She didn't, or if she did, she ignored him. He kept going with the insults for another moment or two before he got into some really mean stuff about her specifically, and the bartender told him he had to keep it down because he was bothering people. The night went on and all parties involved got more drunk, his a lot more than hers, but she and her friends ignored him. Eventually, they got up to go dance and he was quick to follow. I was lingering around bringing people drinks and keeping tabs to be sure nothing escalated. This poor girl, he just wouldn't leave her alone. The especially crazy thing is he alternated between insulting her and begging her to take him back. I caught, "I never wanted to be with you in the first place. I was with all my exes while we were together. And you'll never do better than me, so you should take this chance while you have it. We can start over. I forgive you." From this pathetic guy in the same string of conversation. She kept blowing him off, and her friends who were taking notice kept breaking it up and relocating themselves. I was seconds away from having our bouncer spring him, but he seemed to cool off. That only lasted until she came to the bar, not anywhere near him, mind you, to get herself another drink. He starts saying all this stuff about, "You think anyone will ever want you like that? You can have me, or you can have nothing. And I don't even want you. You were the worst decision I ever made. I don't even know why I'm giving you this chance." And on, until he's cut off by, "What are you saying to my girl, bro?" A towering guy sat down, put his arm around her, and was all like, "Sorry I'm late, babe. Practice kept dragging. Can I help you?" He was 10 times more put together, better spoken, better dressed, way less sad and terrifying than the guy who had been bothering her all night. The pathetic one was so drunk at this point that he didn't recognize he was outmatched and started to launch into this incoherent screaming of, "She's a jerk, and you better not touch her, 'cause she's mine." To which the towering, calm guy stood up and took his jacket off and said, without raising his voice, "Oh, so we have a problem?" The guy's friends noticed the situation and came to collect him at this point, just before one of our staff could intervene. But this new guy followed him over to his friends. He got right in his face and said, "If you have a problem with her, you have a problem with me, so I think it's time to bounce." Drunk guy wasn't having any of it, but his friends were smarter, or at least more sober, and knew they didn't want trouble. Once they were gone, new guy went back over to this girl and says, "Hi, nice to meet you. My name's Isaiah. Sorry to get all involved like that. I hope I didn't overstep. It's just, I could not listen to another second of that. Seriously, that guy is scary. That's why I went with the boyfriend thing instead of just saying, 'Hey, you suck, time to go.' I've got 3 sisters, and he set off all of my alarm bells." I was wondering who'd bring a date to ladies' night. They had never met. He was just a stranger who had stepped in to protect her. They chatted a bit, and he walked her out. They were back here for a first date today. Have you ever had a crazy ex who wouldn't leave you alone? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. "Oh, you don't even want to know the things Kevin used to say to me. You're so much better than him, Reddit boy." Get my priorities straight? No problem. So in 2018, I was a freshman in college, and after being unemployed for a month, I took a job at a major sports department store where they don't wear blue. So my store manager, who we'll call Daniel, was a major jerk. He'd make crude jokes that would get him reported to HQ, gossip about employees to other ones, and generally favor the men, which I'll explain. So I worked at this store for nearly a year, and the turnover rate was abysmal. They'd hire many people who were still in high school and expected them to devote 20 hours a week, which of course was not what they had signed up for, as many wanted about 12 to 15 since they were involved in extracurricular activities. However, Daniel showed no remorse and would often drive people to quit by either dropping their hours to less than 5 or hiking them up to 30, knowing that they couldn't work them, which often left us understaffed. The store was attached to a mall, so we got a lot of petty traffic that would turn into actual sales. However, due to the lack of training by Daniel and his poor oversight in appointing people to train new hires, the customer service in the store was falling dramatically, which halted sales, which led to a decrease in merchandising. The store was a $12 million store when I started, but had fallen to 8 million in a few months because HQ was losing money by stocking a poorly managed store. Daniel took out his frustration on the staff, and here's where the malicious compliance starts. Daniel was on a good reviews crusade and often demanded us to comply with the customer, even if they were dead wrong, just so they'd leave a good review. I worked in footwear, and there's nothing like the anger that arises when you tell someone that oh-so-popular shoe that they desire is out of stock in their size. Because a customer got upset with me over their size being out of stock, I was charged with cleaning the bathrooms. I never did this, because like the overachiever I am, I learned how to work in multiple departments without getting a raise. Thus, Daniel was a wee bit appreciative and never asked me to clean it. Now, I am easily disgusted. The mere thought of rotten foods or bugs or anything I deem ungodly deplorable with me gets me dry heaving. And I explained this to Danny Boy, but he replied with, "Just get it done." So me and Brent went to clean the men's restroom, since it was a two-person job, and might I mention that Brent's disgustometer is also not tolerant. So we sprayed Febreze, took out the trash, and ran out of there for our lives, leaving the dirty mirrors, toilet paper floors, and stained walls untouched. I came in the next day and was told that I did an awful job and that I was never to clean the bathrooms again. So when Daniel asked me to do it a few weeks later, I reminded him of his instructions, and we all watched in marvel as a manager cleaned it, which he said was a big deal since it was not in his job description. But yet, it wasn't in any of ours either, since he had told many of us that the store had janitors in our interviews. But that's just a mini malicious compliance. See, I had grown tired of Daniel in my waiting months at the store. Many of my friends had quit or found better jobs. The hires got worse, and Daniel got much ruder. He attempted to show dominance at any chance he could, and even forced a "Do we have a problem here?" convo with me when I didn't rush to change into the new company uniform that was not my size because I was helping a customer, which then resulted in me getting chewed out because my figure was showing too much as a result of the medium shirt I was forced to wear. But Daniel committed to his paladin-esque crusade and denied us basic human rights in the spirit of good customer service. A pregnant coworker with a doctor's note was denied a chair while working at the register. A coworker with seething cramps was not allowed to go home, even though she couldn't stand. And another was barred from taking off to witness her daughter's prom send-off. But in contrast, a guy left his phone at home and he was allowed to not only get it, but take the rest of the day off. Another called in because of a hangover and was told to rest up and that he wouldn't receive a strike. And his favorite star boy was allowed to disappear often and be on his phone right in front of Daniel, and he didn't even bat an eye. Even the men there obliged to the notion that they were treated far better than we were. And one day, Daniel chose to single me out. Not to toot my own horn, but I am a hard worker. And Daniel took advantage of that by scheduling me my shifts in different departments and speed training me, knowing I'd catch on quickly. I even had to train new employees, though I wasn't a lead, because I got good reviews and conducted the most footwear services last year. And after I demanded a raise, my $11 an hour, 35 to 45 hours a week summer paychecks were looking nice in spite of the horrible managing. But school started up again, and I informed Daniel that I needed to return to my somber 15-hour weeks that I had last semester. He said that I was lying and that he never gave me such little hours until I hit him with a pic of the schedule that I had for March. He didn't like that chin tap and replied with, "I'll see what I can do." So next week, I see the schedule and see that not only was I scheduled from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. for inventory, but those were also my only hours. 6 hours. But I think, oh, they ain't doing your dirty KV. This is obviously a mistake. So I seek out Danley the Manly and tell him of his mistake, and he responds with, "That wasn't a mistake. You said you needed less hours." Me. Yes, but I can't work past 10 because I have school, and I just wanted to drop to about 15 to 20 hours, which is more than I did last semester. Well, everybody has to work inventory. But Lindy and Richie don't have it because they also have school. Plus, Lindy, Richie, and Michael all have more hours than me, but they're all in high school and just started working here. Daniel, noticing he's running out of excuses. Well, they are more available than you, and we award availability. If you can free up some time, then maybe we can talk in a month, but you need to get your priorities straight. You got it, dude. So, as someone who takes disrespect with a pillar of salt, I considered quitting right then and there, but my anxiety kicked in and I began to worry about cash flow. So I went home on my break and complained to my family, and my mom so eloquently expressed, "Just quit this darn job if you got this darn stressed. It ain't like you got a family to feed." So I took my single, no kid having, empty-bellied butt up there and worked the last 2 hours of my shift. The air in the building hit differently, knowing I wouldn't have to spend more time in it awake than I did my own home. I was calm, cleaned the footwear deck efficiently, and made sure I was the last to clock out. As I approached Daniel at the exit, I said, "So yeah, this will be my last day here. I got my priorities straight, and school is my number one. I recently got an internship there, and I'll just go there because they are more accommodating to my needs as a student. Thanks for the time here. Sucks that we couldn't work it out." And with that, I watched his face turn white. And he said something about not being able to work for the company again due to my lack of a 2 weeks notice. Didn't care, was never going to work there again, and now every time I come to the mall and he happens to see me, he doesn't look me in the eyes, speak to me, and rushes away from the counter so he doesn't have to ring me up. You got what you wanted, Dan. Some follow-up. Dan got flack for doing me wrong, and my ex-team lead chewed him out for it. I'm still friendly with her to this day. And while the internship I went to didn't last long, it helped me get the great one I have now. Edit 2. I was 18 at the time and just lucky to get out. I didn't know the highways and byways about reporting and such. I did write some reviews on Yelp and Glassdoor and whatnot, but I was just happy to move on. I do believe that both good and bad comes around via divine intervention. So I'm sure he got, or is currently getting, his butt whooped. Have you ever had a manager who treated you horribly? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for wanting to move away and not looking after my parents? I, 27, female, have 2 older siblings, 41 female and 39 male, who have taken advantage of my parents' kindness for years. My parents have tried to help set my siblings up because they were high school dropouts and didn't know what they wanted to do in life. They opened up restaurants and bailed them out of debt, only to get into bigger debt later on. My sister has finally grown up and has a good business now, but she spends too much. She tried to borrow $50,000, but I knew she wouldn't pay me back, so I said no. She then tried to make me feel bad by saying I was a horrible sister. My brother is still an idiot and has racked up $500,000 in debt and sends his letters to my parents' house thinking that they'd bail him out again. Sadly, my parents are in no condition to work anymore due to injuries. I didn't dare ask for financial help from my parents because they were severely stressed from my siblings, so I went on benefits when I went to university. Every time I saved up a few thousand, a debt collector would come knocking because my brother was severely late on payments. So every time the debt collectors came, I paid what I had saved over and over again while I was studying because I felt sorry for my parents. When I graduated, I had to move for work and came up with an agreement with my parents where I paid in advance for their mortgage and they paid me back in a lump sum, almost $30,000, when I came back. 18 months later, I came back and they did not keep their end of the agreement. They tried to justify their actions by saying that they were leaving their life insurance and house with a large mortgage to me when they pass on. I was depressed for a long time because that money was to help with living expenses when I go back to study. Fast forward now, my parents told me they will be canceling their life insurance as they can no longer afford it. I said that's fine, but then asked them, which one of your 3 kids has caused you the most grief financially? To which my mom answered, your brother. So I said to get him to look after you and that it's their fault for investing in the wrong kid. Now they're mad at me, saying that it was a waste raising me because I'm not a dutiful daughter. To which I retaliated by saying that they stole the money that was meant for studying from me. My mom tried to downplay this and said it's in the past and that I should let it go. I'm planning to move away, even to a different country, and go low contact. Despite this, I'm even willing to send a small amount of money to them once in a while, which they probably won't even appreciate because they are not grand gestures like my sisters. So, am I the jerk? Edit 1. From the $30,000 incident, I stopped financially helping my family, which was about 7 years ago. As for the debt collector's part, it happened when I was a naive and very sheltered teenager. My brother pressured my mom to take some of the loans out in her name. I helped out because my parents were both depressed. Also because I was scared that it could escalate to us losing our home. Edit 2. I am financially and mentally okay. I just wanted to know if I'm the jerk for moving out and not wanting to look after my parents in their old age, which will be the end of this year when I buy a house. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you keep looking after your parents or not? Please let us know. They made their bed, now they get to lie in it. I'm literally pointing to the law. You guys want a story about a person with a service dog who doesn't understand how service dog laws work? Of course you do. I checked in a lady a week ago who said she had a service animal. Okay, cool. No issues until today when the lady called me today to say she didn't want housekeeping in her room at all during the week because of her dog, and she and her husband were going to be at work. I clarified that she meant the dog would be left unattended, and she confirmed this. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but if it's a service dog, it does need to be with you at all times. You can't leave it unattended. It has to be under your control. That is the law. Lady. It's a registered service animal. Me. Again, it's in the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the law that makes provisions for service animals, and the dog has to be under your control. You cannot leave it unattended in the room. Lady. My husband works next door. He can come and check on it. That's not really the issue, ma'am. If it's not an animal that you need with you at all times, it's not considered a service animal, and you will have to pay the pet fee. He's registered as a service animal with the government. Fun fact, registering your service animal is entirely voluntary, and there's no need for it because you need no documentation for a real service animal. There are a lot of predatory companies with .org at the end of their website address who want you to believe otherwise. Me. Ma'am, if you're going to leave your dog unattended, you're going to have to pay for the pet fee. Fine, I'll pay it, but I want it back. Me. No, it's a fee, not a deposit. So she said she'd come talk to me in person, and I pulled up the frequently asked questions about service animals and printed out the sheet with the relevant information and highlighted it while I waited for her. She came and tried to argue with me. I said, no, the law specifically says you cannot leave a service animal unattended in a hotel room, and held up the paper for her. Karen. No, not everyone needs their service animal all the time. Me. Then it's not covered by the ADA. Now she's holding up her service dog registration card. I have his ID right here. Me. And I have the law right here. You can't leave a service dog unattended in a hotel room. If you want to leave him in the room, that's fine, but you will have to pay the pet fee. I don't know where you got that, but I know the law. I work in the medical field. Me. I know the law also. I got this from the federal government's website. I'd be happy to print out the entire frequently asked questions for you so you can read it in full for yourself. I was told that he could be left unattended in any housing I live in. Me. I can't speak for other housing, but this is a hotel, and he cannot be left unattended in your room. So if you're going to leave him unattended, you will have to pay the pet fee. We argued a bit some more. She said she wasn't trying to argue. I pointed out that she is arguing, and ultimately she decided she would pay the fee today and talk to the GM tomorrow. She went back to her room to get her bank card, and I used the opportunity to call my boss to make sure he and I were on the same page. We agreed that she needed to pay the pet fee and that being misinformed didn't mean she didn't have to follow the rules. She came back with her bank card, and I made her sign specifically that she was agreeing to the pet fee charge. She seemed confident that she could convince my boss to give her the money back. I assume this is because she has not met my boss, who called someone a peasant lettuce farmer last week when she was mad that he opened her door 45 minutes after checkout time. In his defense, he knocked and she didn't answer. He didn't realize she was still in the room when he opened the door. She came to the desk screaming at him, and he responded in kind. I told her that I'd already spoken to my boss and that he agreed with me, but she was welcome to talk to him tomorrow as well. So we'll see how that goes. But I can almost guarantee it won't be the way she wants it to. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter she's allowed to exclude other kids at recess? This is not as serious as some of the other posts on here, but I just feel like the whole thing got blown way out of proportion. I, 34, female, have a daughter who's 8 who is in 2nd grade. By the way, her school closes 2 weeks from Wednesday. So one day last week it was raining, so my daughter's school had indoor recess, which is basically when the teachers bring a bunch of toys and board games into the classroom during recess. There's another boy in her class, I'll call him Isaac, who my daughter complains about a lot. He has made fun of her, but it seems he's kind of like that to everyone, and I thought the teachers had it under control. Well, I guess last time they had recess indoors, he took the whole bin of Legos and wouldn't let any other kids use them. But that day, he had again taken the whole bin of Legos, but my daughter went over and asked if she could use some, and he let her. The teacher noticed and praised him for sharing. Then the next day they had recess outside again. But this time it was special, I guess, because the third grade and the second grade were having recess together, which my daughter says barely ever happens. My daughter was very excited because her cousin is in third grade, and so she only wanted to play with her. They were playing hide and seek by themselves when Isaac came over and asked if he could play too. My daughter said she just wanted to play with her cousin right now, but maybe another time. He got very upset and started pulling her hair. The teacher came over to ask what had happened, and they explained. The teacher thinks that because Isaac was so nice to her by sharing Legos, that she should have said yes to playing with him. I always teach my daughter that she doesn't owe anyone anything, no matter how nice they are, and I believe it's important to teach these ideals young. But my daughter still said no, and so they got sent to mediation, which is basically where two 11-year-olds sit down with them and talk them through the conflict. But I got a call asking if I consented to the mediation, and I asked what it was for. They said my daughter got into a fight, but that doesn't sound like my daughter, so I asked for more details, and they gave the phone to the teacher who told me what happened. I was mad. I said that it should not be the job of my 8-year-old to reward another 8-year-old for their good behavior, and she doesn't have to play with anyone she doesn't want to. It would be a different story if it was a big group of kids playing and they left one kid out, but it was just my daughter and one other kid, so I don't think it was a big deal that she said no, and I refused the mediation because I know they were going to act like their actions were equally wrong and make them both apologize. It has happened in the past. But maybe I could be the jerk for not making her include another kid and not letting her do the mediation. Edit for more info. I am not taking it up further with the school. It's almost over, and I know it will just cause more problems. For those wondering why I haven't made it a big deal before, I knew the teachers already saw him as a problem child, and every time he had been mean to her, he had been punished. Also, I realized I didn't include this, but my daughter has a lot of other conditions that come with having ACON. So after he pulled her hair, he was supposed to go to the nurse's office to make sure she was okay, specifically concerning her epilepsy. But the teacher said they had to go to the office first. She had them sit in the office for 30 minutes while they called both their parents and only let her go to the nurse after I said no. Luckily, she was fine. Edit 2. Just to be clear, I did speak about this with the principal when it first happened, but I didn't request for anyone to be punished. He did say he would look into why she was not immediately taken to the nurse. Also, the teacher doesn't know all her medical problems, so she probably didn't realize the urgency of getting her to the nurse. Am I the jerk for leaving my Zoom class because my teacher didn't care that I was in the hospital? So I, 13, female, am in the hospital because I was having some pretty bad seizures. I'm epileptic. At my school, we have PE every other day. Yesterday, I emailed my PE teacher, I'll call her Miss R, and said I'm in the hospital and I can't come to PE that day. I had done all my other classes, but my teachers usually let us keep our camera off. Also, my parents work during the day, so I was alone other than the nurses. She emailed back and said that I still had to come even if I couldn't do anything. She didn't ask if I was okay or anything. The way our Zoom PE works is we take attendance, then we fill out a sheet on the healthy things we've eaten that day, and then we exercise. I usually ride my station bike at home. When I got into the class, the teacher made me put my camera on. When I turned it on, she didn't acknowledge the fact that I was hooked up to IVs and had a wrap on my head that made me look like an egg, though I could tell all the other kids were curious. Well, then it was time for the exercise part. Didn't get up from the camera because I couldn't really exercise. Then she asked why I wasn't exercising. I replied that I'm not supposed to get up from the bed. She asked why, and I didn't want to say it in front of the whole class, so I said, I don't know. She didn't like that and said we should brainstorm things I could do. I thought it would be something like my homework for other classes, but she was suggesting things like jumping jacks or burpees. She was saying it right in front of everyone, and I was really uncomfortable. She started getting mad that I wasn't willing to work with her or being cooperative. She said if I didn't know why I couldn't get out of bed, then I probably could and just didn't know it. I just left the meeting and was so embarrassed I almost cried. Then after school, some girl that had been in my class messaged me on Instagram and asked why I left the meeting. I told her that I was uncomfortable, and she kept saying I could have just told my teacher why I was in the hospital, but I didn't want to say it in front of everyone. The teacher gave me an F for the day, even though I filled out the sheet thing. She also marked me absent from the class and emailed my mom that I wasn't participating in class. I explained what really happened to my mom, but she doesn't speak English, so there isn't much she can do. But most people seem to think I should have just said in front of the entire class why I was in the hospital. So, am I the jerk for not? Edit. Since someone in my DMs were curious, my mom only speaks Amharic. Edit 2. My doctors wrote a note to the school saying what was going on, and it was my guidance counselor's decision if I had to go to classes or not. My guidance counselor said I did have to because she didn't want to do the extra work. Edit. I'm taking a break from reading replies for the rest of the night. I will catch up in the morning. My inbox currently has over 200 replies, and it's kind of overwhelming. Evict me and only give me till midnight to be out? No problem. So once upon a time, I was living in a, not legal, basement apartment of an old Hungarian woman's house. I was poor. The place was cheaper than what was around, so I took it. How bad could it be? She was horrific. At first, she was an okay landlady, but then things started to turn. First, I noticed that things were off when I got home from work. Ever get that feeling that someone was in your room? That. So I asked her if she had been in there and she denied it. Then I set up a camera and caught her on camera. Asked her again and she denied it, saying she has never gone into my room without telling me. Then I showed her the video and she got mad at me. I worked nights. One time she came in during the day and I was in there, in bed. I woke up when she came in and asked her if I could help her. She said no and left. After that, she would call me lazy boy when she saw me, assuming I didn't work since it was at night. Things kept getting worse. She had sometimes shut off the water when she thought I was using too much, or when I refused to share my Wi-Fi password with her other tenant. Finally, one night I had some friends over for a party. There were 6 of us in total. It was around 11 p.m. And trust me when I say we were not being loud at all. Literally just hanging around the coffee table, eating cheesecake, talking and laughing. She came into my apartment and started yelling that I was having a loud party with too many people in the middle of the night. She actually came and grabbed my shirt, telling me everyone had to leave. Oh heck no, that was it. So I pushed her off of me and the police were called. That Monday, she left a really poorly written eviction notice on my door. Seriously, handwritten, telling me to be out by Saturday by midnight. Here's the malicious compliance. By 11:59 p.m. that Saturday, I had all of my stuff in the U-Haul. My friends and I were just working on bagging up the trash and the other stuff for the dump when she came in and yelled at me that it was past midnight. No problem. I got up and left, leaving a huge pile of junk in the bedroom and storage room. Easily 2 pickup trucks worth of crap I wasn't taking. She actually called my father, who was my emergency contact on my application, to tell me it cost her $400 to haul it away and that I owed her the money. He blocked her number. The curious case of the concerned Karen. So, I've had a few I don't work here moments in my life. I assume this is because I'm a rather extroverted person and I talk to people. So, I don't tend to talk about times that I had it coming. But this time was rather interesting. I've recently returned to my home in Virginia. Things down here are more or less open. In fact, not much has changed due to lockdown as far as I can see. People are cautious. Some things closed for a while, but even buffets are back open and have been for a while. Heck, Golden Corral recently opened back up. Not that I can eat there on my diet. I am the creative director for a designer team. I tend to be able to work from anywhere, so I'm rarely in my office. Because my job can be done on my tablet and in voice conference, I tend to have freedom to move around. This has led to a few people making use of my freedom. Sometimes the widow of my deceased buddy and my sister-in-law ask me to babysit the kids. Since they're all older than 5, I don't really mind. There's no diapers to change, and they're all reasonably intelligent enough to listen and follow orders. I had Falcon, Andy, and Jason, my nephew, and 2 of my neighbor's kids. Jason is older, like 9 or 10, and Andy and Falcon are 6 and 7. We were at this place called Surge, where you have climbing and bouncing on things and foam pits, and like ultimate ninja things. And I'm just like noticing the kids' socks are mismatched and busted, and their shoes are not right. With Andy, I'm like, okay, I may just buy him some new ones because he's my nephew. But my neighbor's kids' shoes are like busted, and I never remember them being that way when Paul was alive. His boys were always crisp. I don't know if Sissy is having issues or if something's up. I'm not gonna pry, but I get it in my head that since I'm gonna get Andy some new shoes, I'll get Jason and Falcon some new shoes too. And socks. I'm definitely throwing away these socks. So after Surge, we go to Kids Foot Locker in the mall, and I'm letting the kids pick the shoes. They keep bringing me shoes, and I'm helping them try them on, and they keep going back and getting them. Now, if you've ever been to a Foot Locker, you know that Foot Locker workers wear zebra stripes like referees. I'm in a cool gray polo with a black neck and rings on the sleeves, big dog logo on the chest. There's absolutely no way you can think I work there, aside from that I'm black and my nephew and Sissy's kids are white. So this lady, dressed like a rich soccer mom, shows up. She brings her kid to me and tells me she wasn't sure about his shoe size, so if I could help, get a hat, and that she's looking for basketball shoes for summer. The kid looks like he's 12. I look up to her and tell her that I don't work there. She apologizes and walks off. Andy comes back with the ugliest shoes I've ever seen. Nike Hybrid. It's like someone threw up the 90s onto a shoe. And they're $110. So I'm like, I ain't paying $110 for these shoes. He comes back with another shoe, a loud and colorful shoe. He and Falcon are excited about it. Puma Future Riders or something. Very ugly shoes. But whatever, I ain't gotta wear them. I help them try them on, and they're too small. We size up his feet, and Andy's feet have gotten bigger since last time. So I tell them go get me ones in the right size and maybe pick a different shoe, because these ones aren't particularly nice. Lady comes back and she's got an attitude. Apparently, she didn't find the worker. Admittedly, I hadn't seen one in a bit. I think they were in the back looking for something for someone. She starts losing it on me, asking me why I lied to her and said I don't work here. I repeated that I don't. She tells me I'm lying and she saw me helping those other kids. I sigh because I know where this is going. I inform her that they are with me and I do not work here, but if she wants, since I have the size up thing, I can help her kid with a shoe. She gives me this very, very weird look and says nothing and walks away. Of course, I'm like, whatever. Then Jason walks up. He of course has a pair of Jordans and I'm like, cool, just make sure you get some socks for your little brother and Andy. And he was like, okay, and he walks off. He comes back like 2 minutes later with his brother and Andy in tow. They all look a little weirded out and are looking behind him. Jason tells me some weird lady keeps bothering him and asking him questions, telling him that if he's in trouble, he can tell her. I'm like, what the heck? And he points out the lady and she's out in the hall talking to mall security. I'm like, this is not about to happen. Jason, who is smart, is like, are you about to be profiled? And I'm like, I think that already happened, kid. I think we're about to be talked to. So I help the kids out with the shoes, get everything, and wait for the security guard to come up. It's a woman and one of those biking cops, like with the windbreaker and yellow on top. They're very polite. The cop especially has this look on his face like this is a huge waste of his time. He says that this lady is concerned about what's going on here. I don't ask why. I know why. I just say, apparently so, but we're all good here. He asks the kids if they're all good, and Jason says yeah, that I'm Uncle Unfettered, and we're just buying shoes when that crazy lady kept trying to talk to them. I tell him that Andy is my nephew by marriage, and Falcon and Jason are the kids of my neighbor who are friends. I'm just babysitting. The security guard lady asks about the shoes, and I tell her my reasoning for buying the shoes, and she's very complimentary. It's a good chat, and they go back and talk to the lady, who argues a bit with them before looking really embarrassed. The security guard looks like she's dressing her down. As everyone gets their things and is getting ready to check out, the other worker is not back from the back, and the lady comes back to me and apologizes and asks if I'm still willing to help her find some basketball shoes for her son. She says with everything going on in the world right now, you cannot be too careful. I want to get on my high horse and call her out, but I'm like, example for kids, blah blah blah. So I just say, it's alright. Her heart was in the right place and it's cool. I help her son get some shoes, some bright light blue Super Mario Pumas. I took the boys for ice cream at Sweet Frog that I couldn't eat and called my wife up to let her know what happened. We had a good laugh. Has anyone ever called the cops on you for a stupid reason? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. If you can't put your phone away during work hours, this job ain't for you. I work as a direct support person. My company has some serious hate towards cell phones. They used to fire people on spot if they were caught with their cell phones. Because of lockdown, my company has been suffering badly. They lost about 40% of the staff and roughly half oversights. They are also basically hiring pretty much anyone and throw overtime at anyone who asks for it. But they're still really struggling. It's to the point where they have to have someone pick clients up and bring them to other clients' places because they don't have enough staff to cover everyone. I work with large amounts of clients and am pretty much capable of doing almost anything that supervisors can do. I'm also the one who has trained many other employees, so they often come to me before they go to supervisor. Last week, I was working and I was bored out of my skull as usual. I was working with this client who didn't want to do much besides watching TV or playing on his tablet all day, so I was on my phone. One of the managers walked in and snuck up behind me and tapped me on the shoulder. I turned to look at the manager and casually said hi. The manager then acted like I was surprised and trying to hide the fact that I was using my phone. I was casually holding it as the manager gave me a long lecture. I told the manager, I work 16 hours a day and take on many tasks that I don't have to just to give the supervisor some breathing room. I sure as heck am going to use my phone when there's nothing else to do. Manager then smirked and told me to put my phone away and told me I'd have to come down to the office sometime in the next few days. I remind the manager of how crappy some employees were, hours late every day, literally sleeping on the job, etc., and didn't get fired. So it's really unfair of them to get all up in arms about me being on the phone. I was told if I can't stay off the phone, then this isn't the right job for me. I went and grabbed my stuff and clocked out. The manager was jumping all over the place, screaming about how I can't abandon my clients. I told the manager if he wasn't being nitpicky for tiny things that don't affect anyone, we wouldn't be in this jam. The manager begged me to stay for just a bit so someone could come and take over. I said no, got in the car and left with manager standing there watching me dumbstruck. A bit over an hour later, supervisor contacted me and apologized for what happened. I was informed that they really need me around, and from now on, if anyone comes in, as long as I put the phone away, no one will say a word. Since I like my supervisor and am friendly with many employees, I don't want to make things harder on them, and also I need money. I reluctantly agree to come back the next day, but if I ever hear anything about me being on the phone again, I'm gone. Just a few hours ago, the manager came in and saw me on the phone. I just put it in my pocket and got up and we had a short conversation about a work issue. Not a single word about the phone was mentioned. Play stupid games at work? Win stupid prizes. Early last year, I started working as a contractor supporting one of the many government agencies here in the US. My job description was pretty simple. Act as administrative support for a particular federal employee. In effect, I'm a glorified secretary. I push papers, schedule and file things, and act as a gopher when necessary. The job wasn't particularly difficult, but it really helped that the Fed and I got along like a house on fire. The problem is, the Fed I work for doesn't get along with another Fed who works in the same office. Their job descriptions have nothing to do with each other, and there is really very little need for them to interact with each other. But for some reason, which I still don't know, there was bad blood between them. Cue the lockdown. Our office went from a steady workload to a maximum telework position, and just like that, there was no work for the contractors to do. No more pushing papers, no more scheduling or filing things, and no more acting as a gopher. Just long days sitting in my cubicle reading Reddit on my phone. The Fed I support decides that we'll take the opportunity to clean out 2 offices in another building that haven't been used for years so they can be repurposed. They had sat idle for years because no one wanted to clean them. These rooms are filthy with electronics that were old in the 90s, old break room food, cables everywhere, the works. As we get started, I'm happy to be there as cleaning these rooms means I finally have something to do. Better yet, the Fed I worked for was right there with me, elbow deep in garbage. After the first day, we've made solid progress on one of the rooms, but it took 8 hours of hard labor to get there. I go back to my cubicle to gather my things to go home and find the other Fed waiting for me. Where have you been all day? I've been in the other building helping my Fed clean out a room. That's not in your job description. You don't need to be helping this person do that. I really don't mind. It's better than sitting around on the government's dime doing nothing. And besides, my job is to support this person. If they want me to help them clean out a room, I'm more than happy to help. No, you can't be doing that. If it's not in your job description, then it's not your job. This Fed should know better than to take advantage of your good nature and make you do work that you weren't hired for. I'm sorry, you're going to have to take this up with my Fed. As far as I know, my job is to support this person in whatever way they need, including physical labor. We'll see about that. The next day, my Fed and I go back to the other building to work. We're 10 minutes into cleaning when the other Fed shows up with a member of the union in tow. The Fed then rips into my Fed for forcing me to do work outside of the scope of my duties and brought the union representative to back up this opinion. The funny thing was, the union rep had no idea what he was doing there. Neither my Fed nor I are members of the union, and his opinion really had nothing to do with the situation. The other Fed brought him in to use as a prop. To his credit, he seemed to know that, because he just gave us an uncomfortable shrug with a look like, "I have no idea why I'm here either," and said nothing at all. Rather than fight about it, my Fed surrenders gracefully, and the two of us reluctantly leave the uncleaned rooms behind. A week later, I was sent home after guidance came down from Washington saying that since there was no work being done, contractors were no longer needed to support the Feds on staff until lockdown ended. I sat home for about a day before getting a call from my company telling me another division needed me. This would be a permanent change of office, and as long as I didn't mind the risk of getting sick, I could start immediately. Fast forward several months to November. I'm happily working away in my new office when the Fed who had a problem with my helping clean the rooms comes in to speak with some of the employees in my new office. This person is absolutely livid because the two rooms had finally been reassigned but still needed to be cleaned before they could be turned over to their new owners. This Fed was called into work specifically to clean the rooms, despite still being on maximum telework status, because there was no one else they could call. All of the contractors who had supported them had already been reassigned, and there was nothing in this person's job description that said that they could be assigned this particular duty. Apparently, it took almost 2 weeks of back-breaking labor to clean out the rooms until they were good enough to transfer. The best part was, this person seems to have completely forgotten what part I had to play in this little drama, because when they came to my office to complain about the injustice of it all to anyone who would listen, they stood right in front of my desk to do so. I got to hear every word of the story right from this horse's mouth. Told off my friend who complains about everything and uses her famous cousin as an excuse to get out of doing anything. My on-off friend thinks she's better than everyone because her cousin is a famous musician. I'm not going to say who for privacy reasons. We're both 19 and are on summer break from college. We both took online classes this past year. We've been on and off because she can be pretty rude and her attitude is off-putting. She complains a lot. I wish I was kidding when I say this, but she honestly has never had to do chores and she calls us asking how to do them. She doesn't even know how to run a vacuum or clean dishes. Her parents did everything. They are remodeling the house and her room. They threw out the dressers, bed frame, desk, and vanity because she drew all over them with Sharpie when she was younger. Also, replacing the hardwood in there because of Sharpie marks. She was complaining to us about having a bare room with just a mattress on the floor. Recently, her mom has been having to work crazy hours and her dad is traveling more with his job. She's always home and they want her to pick up on doing more housework. She told her parents to hire a maid and put it on the cousin's tab, which they yelled at her to stop being lazy and giving them a hard time. She was complaining to us again about how unfair her parents were being and how they also wanted her to get a summer job. She thinks she shouldn't have to work because she can just reach out to her cousin to try and get money off him. She was literally whining to us because she doesn't want to work. Her parents told her she's an adult and adults work and she should be ashamed for the way she acts. Nobody else in the family expects free money from him. She always brags about getting her cousin's inheritance. She always reminded anyone at school when they had a problem with her, teachers, other students, etc., that she's the singer's cousin and she's better than everyone because of that. The last time her cousin went on tour, she went to a handful of his shows and bragged about it to everyone. Other girls went to his show but had level 100 seats or nosebleeds, while she had floor, and she rubbed it in their faces that she didn't have to pay a penny for any of the shows. She bragged about going to Maui for her 16th birthday. She's already making plans and bragging about going to the Bahamas for her 20th. When we brought up living in dorms for next semester at college, she said she would never do that because the dorms look like run-down trash and she would never live in squalor. She really has a "Miss I'm too good for" attitude for a lot of things, and she's always been quite bossy and pretty blunt. When she doesn't get her way with something, it gets crazy, and she will have tantrums and spew venom. She can be really mean, and she has a massive victim mentality. It's always someone else's fault. She expects us, when we go out, to pay for her because she's the singer's cousin and we're lucky to be her friend. She told us most relatives of famous people don't even want to talk to lower class people. What? We are sick of her constantly complaining and told her, your parents aren't being unfair because they want you to get a job and do chores. We all have to do the same. It's normal. Just because your cousin is famous doesn't exempt you from any responsibility in life. You literally use his name to try and get out of doing anything. Yeah, your cousin and parents have money, but who says they are going to want to support you for the rest of their life? You're going to need to support yourself eventually. You honestly sound like a massive spoiled brat, and it's not a good look. If you had a friend who acted like this, would you stay friends with them or not? Please let us know. No, and honestly, I don't know why anybody would. Am I the jerk for spying on my future mother-in-law? My fiance and I live together. I typically have a pretty good relationship with my future in-laws. A few weeks ago, my fiance and I unexpectedly had to go out of town for something with my family for a couple of days. Due to the short notice, my future in-laws watched our dogs at their house. I left them a spare key to our house in case they needed to get anything for the dogs I may not have brought, and they ended up needing. We keep everything for our dogs in a cabinet we have, and they both know this as we showed them. My fiance and I both told them we did not mind them going over there if needed, but to please let us know before they did. Now, it's no secret my fiance and I have security cameras in our house. We installed them after an attempted break-in. We've shown them to my future in-laws, shown them how they work, where they are, and what they do. They are on all the time, but send us notifications when they detect movement or noise. Future in-laws knew this too. This is why I told them to let me know before they went over so I would know the sensors were detecting them. I typically turn on the detection sensors tool if we leave the house. While out of town, I get both a noise and motion detection. I, of course, freak out because no one told me they were headed over there. When I look on the camera, I see future mother-in-law walking around the house. It looks like she's talking to someone, so I turn the volume on to see if she's maybe looking for something for the dogs. I hear her talking to a cousin on the phone, or something about how it looked like we hadn't done laundry in a year. It had been a week, out of town, and we both work full-time. I thought it was a little rude, but I let it go. Then I see her start digging through one of the kitchen drawers where we keep miscellaneous stuff, like menus, mail, etc., going through it. Again, she has no reason to go through it as we keep all the stuff for our dogs in a single cabinet. I let my fiance have a look, and he calls her and asks why she's over there without telling us and looking through our drawers. She makes up some excuse she's looking for something for the dogs. He tells her he knows she's lying because she knows good and well where the dog's cabinet is. She finally gets defensive and asks how we even knew. He told her we saw her on our cameras. How else would we know? She said we were jerks for spying on her and stuck with her story that she was looking for something for the dogs. Am I the jerk here? I was really not trying to spy and wouldn't even have looked at the camera had she let us know that she was going over there. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or are the in-laws? Please let us know. I don't think I'd give her a key to the house in the future. Entitled coworker becomes an entitled parent. This happened/started about a year and a half ago. Entitled mom shows up at my desk one day at work. I've seen her at meetings, but never interacted directly with her. We work in different parts of the building for different functions. She's in customer service and I'm in supply chain. I'm several steps up the food chain and I don't know her name. Entitled mom. Are you? Says my name. Me, checking to see if my desk name place card disappeared. Yes? Okay, I heard you used to be in the military. Not a question, just a statement. Me, yes, I was. Okay, I heard you used to fix electronics. Is that true? Me, I did. I haven't done any of that work in about 10 years. Okay, but do you still know a lot about electronics? Me, not liking this conversation. Some things, yes, some things, no. But you could add a printer though, right? Me, I'm sorry, I have a meeting to go to in a few minutes. What do you want? Well, I need you to add a printer on my computer. Me, you know the step-by-step directions with screenshots are posted over all of the printers, right? And isn't IT right next to where you work? They can help if you need it. It would take you only a minute. I'm horrible at this kind of stuff, and IT is off-site today. Me. Okay, which printer do you want to add? Entitled mom looks at me like I'm stupid. The one closest to my desk. Me. Yeah, I figured that. But do you know the printer name? No. Can't you figure that out? Me. Listen, I'm due at a meeting in a few. I need to finish up a couple things beforehand. If you can't get anyone to help you in the next hour from your area, bring me the computer name and I'll show you how to add it. Can you come to my floor? That would be easier. Me. Not for me. If you really want my help, make sure you bring the printer name with you. I'll be back for my meeting in an hour. Entitled Mom walks off. My coworkers and I exchange glances and eye rolls and talk about how easy it is to follow the screenshots. I get to my meeting and forget all about Entitled Mom until a friend IMs me. Hey, what did you do to Entitled Mom? Me, not understanding the question's intent. I might be helping her add a printer if she can't figure it out by the end of the meeting. Any chance you can help her? Friend, but what did you do to her? She sounds upset and said you were really rude. Me, what? Does that even sound like me? I explain what happened. You can ask, name of a friend we both know who is there. She was really pushy. I said I'd help her when I got out of this meeting if she couldn't figure it out. Can you help her? Friend, I'm on a call and I'm going to another meeting after. If I get out early, I'll try. Just thought you should know, she's down here complaining about you. Fast forward to the end of the meeting. I get back to my desk to drop off my computer and then go to the break room to get some tea. I walk back to my desk with a friend. Entitled Mom is waiting for me, looking irritated. Entitled Mom, eyeing my cup of tea. So, you had a meeting? Me, yes, then I got some tea. Were you able to figure it out? No, that's why I'm back. Can you hurry up and add the printer? I need to get this printed for this afternoon. Me, hey, I'm offering to help you. I don't know you, and I hear you're complaining that I'm not being very helpful to your coworkers, and I don't even know you. Who said that? Do you want my help or not? Fine, I got the name like you said. Hands me a post-it. It read the words, HP Laserjet. I sigh. Listen, this isn't the name. Who's someone who sits near you that could run over to the room and check for us? I am her coworker who promptly sends me a screenshot and says they offered to help her earlier, but Entitled Mom said I was going to. And I walk over to the printer room. I make her follow the directions and the screenshots herself, and it's set up in a couple of minutes. Entitled Mom. See? Was that so hard? Me. No, it really wasn't complicated at all. Next time, just give it a shot first, and then ask IT for help. Or lots of people in your area can do this, like the person we IM'd for the printer name. Thanks. See you later. Cheerfully goes off. I forgot all about it until the next day. I'm working and I hear a happy voice say, Hi, it's me again. Thanks again for all your help yesterday. Me, feeling annoyed, but relenting a bit because she sounds like she's being nice. Oh, you're welcome. Everything work okay? Yeah, I got everything printed out just in time. Hey, I was telling my family about how you used to work on electronics, and my son has a question. Can you do a mod to his Xbox? This is where I make a giant error. I should have said no and just left it there. Instead, I say something like, It's been a long time. I think the last one I did was a Gen 2 Xbox while I was deployed. Oh, good. So you'll do it? Me, backpedaling hard. No, I can't. I don't even have the equipment to do that, and there are a lot of problems with making mods, like I could break the machine, and it would completely void the warranty. I said a bunch of other stuff too about why it was a bad idea. But my son really wants the mod, and everyone else wants too much money for it. They want like $50, and we'd have to buy the mod ourselves. Me, well, yeah, it takes time, and the mod is more than $50. What you're paying for is a lot of skill and knowing how to solder. Again, I wouldn't know how to do any mods these days, and I don't have the equipment to do this anymore. It would cost you more to buy the equipment than to pay someone else. Even if I could do it, I'm not willing to. But he really wants it, and he doesn't want to pay that much. He says you can use the electronics lab at his school. At this point, one of my coworkers has had enough and tells her, Listen, he doesn't want to do it, and he said no. Either pay someone who will, or tell your son he can't have it. Entitled Mom looks shocked and leaves in a huff, saying, You don't have to be so rude about it. I figured that was the last I'd see of her, but no. My friend who works near her IMs me a little later and says she's going off. I find out who her manager is and set up a meeting with him a few days later. He shows up for the meeting with her in tow. We get into the room and he kicks it off. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us. I hope we can work out whatever conflict you're having. I've told Entitled Mom I want to stay unbiased, so I haven't heard her side yet. Can you tell me why you think you're having issues working with Entitled Mom? Me. What? Manager. Well, tell me your side of things, and then she can tell me hers, and then we can talk about it. This guy thinks he's here to resolve a conflict. Me. Well, she's being extremely rude. Entitled mom, spluttering. Manager, looking frustrated but patient. Can we stick to the facts and avoid any kind of name-calling? Me. Okay, I'm just frustrated. She wants me to make a modification to her son's Xbox, and I'm not able to do it or willing to. Manager. I'm sorry. What the— Entitled mom cuts in. He wants me to spend money to hire someone else to do it. I already told him he could use the electronics lab at his school. Manager. Entitled mom, is this work-related? Entitled mom. Well, at first it was. He wouldn't help me install my printer. I finally got him to, and when I asked him to help my son, he refused. And one of the other people he works with was really mean about it. He made it personal. Me, leans back and smiles a little. Manager. Your son? Looks at me. You're in supply chain, right? Me. Yes, I am. Entitled mom. Yeah, he wants me to spend a bunch of money on my son's Xbox. My son even found a place for him to work on it. I was going to buy the thing he needs. He just has to install it. Manager to her. Would you excuse us for a second? I'd like to talk to OP. Entitled mom leaves looking smug. Manager to me. I'm at the same level as the manager as far as responsibilities. Can you tell me what's going on? I ping my counterpart, who is there for both interactions. As she's entering, Entitled mom calls out. Make sure you tell him what really happened. Manager. I think I'm going to be really sorry, but what did happen? We explain, and my coworker is way more heated than I am. I also refer him to my friend who works near them for the rest of the story and to show him my friend's IMs. Manager. I'm so sorry. Do you want HR involved? Me. Only if she keeps asking me to do this stuff. Also, next time if I ask for a meeting with you, don't add someone to the invite. Don't surprise me. We talk a bit more before he leaves, and he promises she'll only come to me if there's a work reason. Fast forward a month. She walks by my desk and says she's on her way to a meeting and says, well, I just thought you should know we had to get our son a new PlayStation since you wouldn't help him with his Xbox. Me. You weren't willing to pay someone who would do it for $50, so you spent hundreds on something different, and this is my fault? Yeah. If you had just made the change, we wouldn't have had to. I'm speechless. She walked off looking smug, and I emailed her manager and HR and haven't had to interact since. Apparently, she reserved a meeting room in my area just so she could walk by my area to say that. Now, she's not allowed to come to our area and has to work through her manager for anything to do with us. She's also been warned not to badmouth me or she'll lose her job. Edit. Wow, thank you, kind internet strangers. I'm glad there's a forum to share bizarre stories in. I've enjoyed reading everyone else's, and I'm glad my story resonated. Something brought to my attention by a couple of commenters is the possibility that this lady wanted me. I had never considered that before and shudder now, but it makes odd sense. I just IM'd my friend from the story, and he says she flirts a lot with people senior to her, often in very uncomfortable ways. Sad thing is that her husband is a successful person. It makes me wonder if he does the same thing. Shudders again. Quit your job and raise my kid. My sister-in-law, brother's wife, is a real Karen. High maintenance and demanding to the extreme. She will demand things from my parents, to which they say no, and then she gets mad, refuses to talk to them, and takes it out on my brother until he calls up my parents to ask they apologize because it's making his life horrible. Years ago, when they had their first kid, my niece, my parents were elated at their first grandkid. Sister-in-law's mom isn't in the picture, so my mom was very attentive to sister-in-law, helping her shop for baby, being a supportive shoulder, even offering advice and insight into pregnancy, labor, and birth. Sister-in-law lavished in the attention and things were golden, until sister-in-law went back to work. I was at my parents' house visiting when the phone rings. Dad answers, listens for a few, and then simply says, I'm not getting in the middle of them. Talk to your mother. And he hands the phone to my mom. She listens a bit and then says, well, I'm sorry, but I'm just not okay with her plan. I'm not going to apologize and I'm not quitting my job. That's the end of it. And she hangs up. Of course, I had to demand details. Sister-in-law was going back to her job and called my mom up a day or two prior to this to discuss childcare. She told my mom about the daycares she had checked out and how expensive they all were and what a struggle it was going to be. But then she had a brilliant idea. My mom should become a full-time nanny for niece. Of course, she would have to quit her job, but since she's only 5 years from retirement, it's not a big deal. My mom graciously informed her that while she loved watching niece, she was not going to quit her job. Cue a hissy fit. But the only other person who could do it is sister-in-law's 90-year-old grandma, but she could only watch niece at her house because she's 90 and she doesn't drive, and she has too many pets, 3 of which were sister-in-laws that she dumped on her. Daycare is so expensive. Don't you want quality time with niece? Mom suggested maybe sister-in-law find a cheaper daycare. No, Montessori daycares are the absolute best. Mom pointed out she's never even heard of that, so there's no way her childcare would be Montessori. Mom suggested sister-in-law go back to work part-time and then daycare would only have to be part-time and thus cheaper. No, if she wants to stay on track for her retirement goals, she needs to go back full-time. Mom ran out of advice and finally just said, "Well, and I think you're going to need to lower your standards or find another option because I'm not quitting my job and that's final." And she hung up on her. My mom was not happy at how hard I laughed, and of course, when I had my kid a few years later, I jokingly asked how close she was to retirement because I needed a nanny. What would you do in this situation? Would you quit your job to become a full-time nanny or not? Please let us know. The spouse that you choose to start a family with is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life. You owe it to your future kids to choose a good spouse, so please stop marrying Karens. My employer stole my stuff, so I made him pay for it. Since I was a kid, I was fascinated in computers and electronics. During school, I had no social life. I just stayed at home and I was learning stuff. I was going to generic high school that should prepare you for university without any specialization, but there were few people with same interests as me, and our IT teacher was really supportive of us. When I finished high school, I already had a job as a programmer and had a few years of experience in the field. I also was experienced with electronics and even worked on a few contracts for the factory in town, involving creating machines for them. Other engineers came up with an idea on how the machine would work. My job was to put their motor, sensors, wire it up, and write programs for the PLC to control it. I moved to a big city and started university, so I lost my programming job in the city. I was looking for a part-time job while living off of my parents' support. Things changed when my friend got an escape game voucher for 5 people for his birthday and took me with him. The escape game had cool, magic stuff, like you placed objects in a shelf and all the pictures in the room fall off the walls, etc. While we were there to solve puzzles, I was mostly interested in these magic things, making theories about how they made them and thinking how I would do it. When the game was over, I saw for a moment their technical room, and at this point, I was like, I want to work here. I sent them my CV, and as I was overqualified for this job, I was accepted after the first interview. I was young, naive, and stupid, so they just used me. My hourly rate was, after tax, an equivalent of $8.50. To put in comparison, cashiers at big stores here make $6.50 plus benefits. First few months were awesome. I was paid for doing my hobby, and the owner loved me, as his previous tech guy, referred to as tech moron from now on, was, compared to me, just dumb. I'm not bragging, I swear. He did not come up with almost any original designs. He just found something on the internet and was skilled enough to read the schematics and somewhat copy it. But he had big gaps in his knowledge. Once he told me that I can't build a battery-operated circuit that will be powered while the battery is charging, as this would cause the battery to explode. When I told them about charging regulators and how it's not an issue with his iPhone or laptop, he just told me I was hired to help him and to buzz off. Over the time, tech moron started to realize that I'm just smarter than him, and his ego could not handle it. So he decided from now on to make my life miserable. For example, the owner tasked me with replicating a device that they already have in one game as he wanted to put it into another one. I spent a week just messaging Tech Moron, asking him for the schematics and source code, calling him, and he just never replied. Then I decided to do him over. I came up with an improved design and built it. When I was showing it at the next meeting to the owner, who was very happy with it, Tech Moron just yelled at me for not using his design and wasting time on reinventing the wheel. After some time, the owner realized what was going on and hired another tech guy, Tech Senior from now on. But he cannot fire Tech Moron as he had all important source codes and designs at his laptop. And because of a bad contract, It was not property of the Escape Game Company. Little did we know that in the future, he will not hand over most of the designs and codes, and we will end up rewriting it from scratch. The company was also franchising. We just took a game we already had running, made an exact copy, and installed it in another location. We then provided support while they were paying us license fees, usually a small percentage of their profits. The owner was a typical manager who thought 9 women could deliver a baby in a month, and it showed as the company grew. Eventually, Tech Senior was made my boss as he had much more experience in electronics, while I was more oriented on programming and on-site support for game masters if something broke. We didn't give a hoot about Tech Moron, as at this point, he just showed up once a month, did almost no work, criticized all we already did, and went home. Things were going really well, so we hired a few electronics students to help us. The building department, which was making props, like special wooden tables that we would use to hide our magic into, also grew. Things were looking really good, until one meeting about new franchise client. The owner told us what he needs. We, tech guys, talked to prop guys, went over all the requirements, and told him we need 10 weeks for it. Well, 8, but we actually accounted for things going sideways, as this date would be on the contract. Usual stuff in healthy company. Next week, next meeting, he told us that the client does not want to wait, and he put 5 weeks in the contract. His reasoning was we are doing the same stuff as before, and now we have more people, so it will go faster. We worked hard, like really hard. There were weeks when I just went home for 8 hours to take a shower and sleep for a bit, then went back to the workshop to work on stuff. It was hard, but we managed to finish on time, and I got some sweet money in overtime. But this was a mistake. Now we showed him that what he wants is impossible. So the next contract went over the exact same deadline crap, more overtime. I remember having almost no social life, just working the whole week, sometimes sleeping at the workshop and being stressed out. Then, every Friday, I just went to a pub with a few friends, had drinks to relieve the stress, and slept through the whole weekend. Then comes a Monday and we start over. Eventually, I went from, I love this job, to, I don't give a hoot, and I wasn't the only one. Our performance dropped and we started missing deadlines. Did the owner account for it in the contracts? Nope. Repetition makes perfection. This time you can do it faster, was his reasoning. And he just kept signing more and more contracts, dumping the crap on us. I remember the one meeting where he asked us about the status of the Project D, as the deadline was next week. Well, we hadn't even started working on this, as we had our hands full with Project C, which was started later because we didn't finish Projects A and B on time. This is how far it went. Deposits from new contracts were used to pay fines for old contracts. At this meeting, I realized I had just had enough. Of course, our job was not only franchising. We had our own games that needed to be maintained, and we were doing that all the time alongside with franchising. What was the biggest issue with all the games was the control software. It was a crapload of simple-purpose scripts driving all the Raspberry Pis and Arduinos in the game. But it had one UI presented to the game master so he could control all the props in-game, override them, etc. At least in theory. But oh boy, it was buggy. Sometimes not working at all. Sometimes you wanted to shine lights on objects to give the players a hint, but instead it opened doors to the next level, etc. It was no universal. Simple requests required massive changes. Lots of overrides were not implemented correctly. One day, the owner finally agreed to my demands and allowed me to rewrite all of it. It took me a few months, but I created Universal Engine that could handle all of the crap game designers were asking us to do. Was easy to expand, had error protection and recovery tasks. Now if one prop stopped responding, you just opened the debug page and clicked restart. This was a game changer, as previously the game master had to switch off the power, and sometimes that was not possible during the game. And my biggest achievement, I created easy scripting language which was used to describe the game workflow. The game master now had a crap load of working controls and options to interrupt predefined tasks and change the flow. But that barely happened, as the game was now almost automatic and he was just there to give hints. I was not comfortable running this software on the Raspberry Pi that was there for the previous control, and I wanted a better hardware for that. My request was always denied by the owner. but the games manager wanted the new software working ASAP. To this point, we were always just testing it from my laptop, so I decided to lend them a few PCs. Some time ago, a friend from a big corporate pulled a crap load of Dell Optiplex workstations from eScrap. They were working fine, had Intel i5 CPUs, 8 gigs of RAM, decent onboard graphics. You could buy them refurbished for about $200. The company just had no use for them and wanted to go over selling them, so they just dumped them. I had a stack of 20 of them at home, just collecting dust. I took a few of them to my work, and the boss agreed we will settle it later. So I just emailed him a list of all my hardware that was used in the games. 5 PCs, some Wi-Fi routers, old tables, some monitors, and other stuff I had collected, mostly from e-waste, fixed it, and had no use for it. Of course, I did not tell them I got them for free and was expecting them to pay me for it. Fast forward. I was fed up with the franchising deadlines and got a few job offers that made me realize my real price and that they had been taking advantage of me, working for almost nothing. But I was waiting. In the next month, my software was deployed in the remaining games. Tech Moron was out of the picture for a few months now. Tech Senior had some programming knowledge and was able to use my scripting language, but had very little understanding about the insides of the complex engine I wrote, which was now being developed for over a year. I had results, I was important, and I had demands. I scheduled a meeting with the owner where I wanted to present the list of all of the wrong things and what I want to do about it. It all came to one single argument. I'm not happy here, but you need me. So you will fix these issues and give me a raise, or I'm leaving. And I will stand my ground. Recruiter from big IT company I wanted to work for messaged me on LinkedIn a few weeks prior, and I already went to the interview. So I had an escape plan prepared. The future looked bright, and I was ready to make it happen. The day of the meeting came up. I was in a good mood until there was a nasty accident in the workshop. I, being the youngest one here, not responsible for the mess, was tasked with cleaning it up. I had an argument with the workshop manager about me being a programmer and not a radioactive waste cleaning lady. But in the end, I just broke and started cleaning. Halfway through it, almost throwing up from the smell, I just snapped. None of this would happen in a decent IT company. I went to my office, packed my stuff, and just sat there playing games, waiting for the owner. When he showed up, I told him about all of the issues. He agreed with some, but when we got to the end, I just told him that today was the last straw and that I'm leaving right now. I was employed as an independent contractor, so they could save money on taxes, and my contract had nothing about my time there. I just told him that I will send him download links for all of the files I have, as the contract stated that they are owned by the company. He begged me to stay for one more month, as they were behind on many deadlines. I just said I will think about it, and I left. On my way home, I called the recruiter and told him I accept the job and can start next month. The next day, I just made a big archive of about 150 gigabytes of files, backups, etc. that I had, uploaded it to my server, and emailed the link to the owner and Tech Senior. I then spent the next 2 weeks in bed watching Netflix and ignoring calls. For the last week, I showed up to help clear up some things, hand over my projects, asked about the computers and the other stuff I lent them. He told me they would pay for it, and then left. I was lucky as heck. The next month, lockdown happened, and a month later, they were forced to close all of the games, making their income go to almost zero overnight. This, I believe, was the reason they never paid me for my stuff, even though I repeatedly asked until I got tired of it. Time went by until a few weeks ago, when I saw the Tech Senior was looking for a new job. I messaged him and we talked. He told me that they survived by doing private events for companies until they could open again a month ago. All the other tech guys except him were let go, but he managed, until he got into an argument with the owner. He did not tell me much details, but the owner wanted something either impossible or really expensive. When he presented a cheap alternative, the owner just snapped and fired him on the spot. He tried to reason with him about not firing him until he can teach his successor and find a new job in the meantime, but he was fired on the spot. A week later, I got a call from the owner. He hired the younger tech guys he fired during lockdown and wanted me to come and answer their questions, mostly about the engine I wrote. I agreed, but as we were planning the meeting, I was suspecting he just wanted me to do it for free. When I brought up the hourly rate, he just told me we will solve that later. He hung up and never called again. The day of the meeting came. I was waiting in my car outside the workshop, waiting to see if he would call and ask where I was, but he didn't. A few days later, I parked next to the warehouse where all the games were held, with a Yagi antenna in my car. Surprise, surprise, the Wi-Fi routers I lent them were still there, with the passwords unchanged. I connected to the Wi-Fi and poked around the network. All the PCs that I lent them to run the software on were still there, still running the Linux server I installed there, and looking at the logs, they were still used to control the games. I wrote a script that runs on boot, rolls a dice, and then deleted the whole drive. I was connected to my Wi-Fi router, making changes to my computer, formatting my drives. Then I drove away. A few days ago, I got a call. Apparently, when the Monday shift came in, the control system for one of the games was not responding. The browser was showing timeout. They decided to reset power for the whole rack where all of the PCs were multiple times, hoping it would start up, because turning it off and on again always works. When they decided to stop trying, they found out that all 8 games were dead. The new, old tech guys figured out that the drives probably died, but had no knowledge about my system, so they could not set it up. When I asked about Tech Senior, the owner made some excuse about him quitting and not wanting to work for them anymore. I told him I was happy to help. In the end, this used to be my dream job, but I now work for a big company. I don't have much time and it's expensive. I can come over to set it up, but my hourly rate is now $150. He talked me down to $100, which was still about twice as much as I make now. When I arrived, I checked the PCs, pulled out the email I sent him a year ago, and told him that these serial numbers matched those on the labels. I told him I'm happy to find my lost stuff, took first PC and took it to my car. We had an argument. I told him that I'm either taking all that stuff or he's paying me something like $2,400. He wanted to call the police, but I had the proof that this equipment was mine. He eventually agreed and I got to work. All my software was still in the bit bucket, even with a few modifications Tech Senior managed to make alongside with all of the config files and scripts with the game workflow that Tech Senior was periodically modifying and backing up, so it was a pretty easy job. I got it all working and then stayed for a few more hours, explaining some stuff to the tech guys. I printed the invoice and I left, tired but satisfied. Yesterday, a nice sum of about $3,600 landed in my bank account. From what they told me, all 8 games were dead for 3 days. Each game cost between $80 and $120, takes 1 hour to finish, and half an hour is needed for preparation. So there are 12 slots every day, averaging on $9,600 income per day when fully booked. This is of course just the income. Profit after paying all the rent, wages, electricity, consumables used in the games, etc. is much lower, but I don't know how much. Before lockdown, about 80% of slots were booked during the week and 100% during weekends. I just like to think I made him lose $23,000, not counting the angry customers which were forced to reschedule. Dollars just because he was a jerk. If he paid me for my stuff or did not fire his only tech guy, none of this would have happened. Have you ever had a boss who tried to do you over? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. You're dating my son. You must do as I say. My sister is married to a man with a stay-at-home mom who has decided that adulthood through middle age is still too early to stop overparenting her kids, and is also very opinionated about what everyone else should be doing, especially when it comes to parenting, because she's wonderful at it apparently. To keep the peace, people in my family let her get away with it. I do not. This greatly upsets her. Back when our kids were in elementary school, and before Sis and hubby were formally married, we all lived in the same neighborhood. I'd go to my sister's for a visit, and afterwards we'd both walk to the school to pick them up at the end of the day. The mother-in-law insisted on coming too. Sis didn't think it was a hill to die on, so I kept my mouth shut. One day, her overly critical highness decided that she didn't like my kid's coat, and that we needed to fix that, meaning that I would have to spend my money to buy another one that met her approval. I loved that coat and didn't give a hoot about her preferences, so I told her that there was no need to talk about it. She kept it up constantly for almost a week because comments like, "I don't care if you like it or not. I'm not your kid, and even if I were, I'd still tell you to back off," were too vague for her to get the hint that I wasn't going to be pushed around. I tried ignoring her, tried changing the subject, She was just fixated. So finally I turned around and told her flat out that I do not give two hoots in space what she liked and that it was none of her business. We're not even related. She got fed up with my stubbornness and advanced on me, poking me over and over. I don't care if you're related to me or not. You are my son's girlfriend's sister, and you will do as I say. I warned her to stop poking me, and she started screaming and sobbing, telling everyone in the 2-mile radius that she was being harassed and threatened just because she was trying to be helpful. I laughed and walked on while she was being comforted. An hour later, I had over 20 calls and texts from people telling me to apologize to her to keep the peace, suggesting strongly that I should go out and buy another coat immediately so that she wouldn't be upset anymore. Even one threatening to catch me outside. My sister has been with her husband for 25 years, so I have tons of stories about this lady. Like one about the time my nephew and niece couldn't come to my daughter's birthday party because I refused to invite her and my sister's boyfriend's mother's nephew's son. Or the time my baby shower was canceled because I preferred to have my friends as guests instead of my sister's boyfriend's mother's mother, plus mother-in-law, plus sister-in-law, almost all of whom I'd never met. Or the time there was a Royal Rumble elimination-style verbal cage match, 1 against 12, because I decided to use my tax refund for dental care instead of a TV. Or the family blow-up, because I refused to give her half of the bottles of shampoo I had bought at half price. She messed up. This one lady has been at the hotel before and became notorious because her kids were rowdy. I'm in the back office and I hear her check in at the front desk with a front desk attendant. She signs the registration card for the 2 queen rooms for 3 nights already, but asks how much a 2-queen suite is. He tells her it's $189 and $80 price difference per night. It's too much money for 3 nights, she says. She tells the front desk she'll take the suite for the first night, but move to the cheaper room tomorrow for the other 2 nights. Sure, that's no problem. Tomorrow morning, I'm working the shift, and I see her in the morning. I ask her if she will be moving to the cheaper room today or staying in the same room. She tells me she will stay in the suite room. Okay, no problem. The following morning, I'm working the shift again, and I see her. Ask her the same question. She says she'll stay in the suite room. Sure, no problem. Not sure why she would have been insistent on moving if the price is too high since she took the room for all 3 nights, but okay. She checks out after the 3rd night with no problems. Well, except her kids threw a pool chair into the pool and stole our door padlock. She's already not in good graces with the hotel. A few days later, I'm in the back office and I answer a phone call. It's her. She's wondering why her bill is so high. I explained to her that while she was checking in, I was in the back office and heard the entire exchange. I explained how she verbally agreed to the rate change and wanted to move to the cheaper room for the 2nd and 3rd night. I tell her I'm the one who asked if she wanted to move, and she declined twice, thus locking the increased rate. She says, "The paper I signed has a different rate. You're scamming me. I'm not paying more than what I signed." Oh, I see where this is going. She thinks she can save money by doing this scam. I tell her I'm not reducing the rate. I heard her verbal agreement. I explain her verbal agreement with the rate change is enough. If she had a problem with the rate, she should have moved or not taken the suite room, and she should have seen her folio we provided under her door and inquired then before checking out. She wasn't buying it. It wasn't a pretty argument. She says, "I have a future reservation there. What can we do so this situation doesn't happen again?" Oh, heck no. I look up her reservation and I tell her, what we can do is cancel your reservation because we're not renting to you anymore. You're banned. "You can't do that," she says. "Oh, yes, I can. I'm doing it right now. You're not welcome here anymore." I then hung up on her. A week later, I get a chargeback on my desk from her for the difference of rate. I explain the situation to the credit card company and win the case. She has yet to return. Am I the jerk for not photographing my cousin's wedding, even though I'm free on the date she's getting married? So I, 38, male, work as a photographer. I've been in this game for 10 plus years at this point, and in most cases, I love my job. I say most cases since it's really dependent on the client. I mainly do weddings, but I also do cosplay, events, and product photography. But the big bucks come from wedding photography. Now that everything is opening back up where I am, weddings have been going on full swing, and it has been busy. Lucrative, but very busy. I'm solidly booked. Almost. This will be relevant later. Up until November of this year. My cousin, 22, female, is getting married in August of this year, during a time where I'm giving myself and my team a very much needed break, about a week in early August, paid so that way they're not losing out on any income. My aunt contacted me a couple of days ago and asked if I'm available to be the photographer at her daughter's, my cousin's, wedding on August 7th, which came as a surprise since I didn't even know she was engaged, let alone getting married so soon. Also, I didn't even get an invite. I informed her that, unfortunately, no, I'm not available as I have booked that time off and already informed my team and planned on heading out to the cabin to get some much-needed R&R. My aunt understood and wished me a relaxing vacation. My cousin, on the other hand, blew a fuse. She contacted me a couple of hours later and said that I have no love for family and that I should take pictures at her wedding. I offered that I could ask my team if any of them would be willing to do it. You know, make some extra bread and to help build their portfolio. Then she asked if they would do it with a family discount and said that she can't afford an obnoxiously expensive photographer. So I asked her if, even if she thought I was available, she'd expect me to do it for free or discounted. She said, "Yes, because we're family." And to that, I laughed so hard and told her she was delusional and rescinded my offer of asking anyone on my team if they wanted to take the job. Since then, various family members have contacted me saying that I should just do it, for family. Even my own siblings and parents said I should just do it. I informed them that no, I booked the time off, and even if I was to do it, I'd expect to be paid. From that bit of information, lots of them have retracted their want of me doing it. Guess my cousin didn't inform them that she expected it to be for free. Even my aunt called me and apologized for her daughter's behavior, but one person, whose opinion I actually care about, my mom, still says I should do it for free, since family, and said, "Only jerks don't help family." I know in my heart I'm not the jerk, just wanted some internet strangers' perspectives. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is their cousin? Please let us know.
The cousin's a total Karen. You shouldn't do anything for her. I'd probably go out of my way to ruin her wedding, but that's just me.
Told my Karen sister she's not a stay-at-home mom, she's just selfish. I want to make it clear, I'm not insulting being a stay-at-home mom, just my sister's version of it. I know how much hard work it is, and I'm not putting anyone down for it. But my sister really does just sit around doing nothing all day, while somebody else does all the work and then whines about how hard it is being a stay-at-home mom, and I've had enough of it. My sister, 26, female, and I, 24, female, have always been polar opposites, so we do clash on quite a few things, but generally we are close. She has 2 kids, Rose, who's 6, and Ty, who's 7, and I have a son, Oz, who's 2, and they're really close. Sister has always been a stay-at-home mom ever since she left school and never had a job, whereas I've always been career-driven. My job's hours can be long and irregular, but I love it. Though, if ever, say I'm tired or I've had a hard day, sister has to one-up me and say how she's even more tired or has had an even harder day because she's a stay-at-home mom, so works 24/7. The thing is, all the things a stay-at-home mom does, she doesn't do. Both kids are at school, and her husband Dan is the one that gets them ready, helps with homework, cooks all the meals, they have a cleaner, and sister doesn't drive. So my mom picks the kids up from school and looks after them until Dan gets home from work. Most weekends, Dan will bring the kids over to me. I live a 10-minute walk away, so sister can have a break. So I don't have much sympathy for her, but most of the time I just let it go. But last week was half term. I was able to get most of the week off, but on Friday there was an emergency at work, so I needed to go in immediately. My husband was away, and my nanny and babysitter were busy. So I asked Mom if she could look after Oz as I had to go into work urgently, but she couldn't as she was looking after Rose. I asked where sister was, and Mom told me she was at home but was feeling tired so needed a rest. I said that she could bring Rose over, but she couldn't as Rose had friends over for a play date. But I took Oz and rushed over to sister's house to beg Mom to take him. While I'm talking to Mom, sister came out. I explained the situation, but she said that as Rose has friends over, it would be inappropriate for Oz to be there. So I asked why Mom couldn't take Oz back home for a few hours and sister watches her girls. Sister seemed offended by the suggestion that she should look after her own kid herself, and I had about had enough and knew this was just wasting time when I had to get to work, so said, "Well, thanks for nothing," and left and took Oz to work with me. It worked out fine, but I was upset with my sister. So today, I went over to Sister's house. I wanted to put the situation behind us and move on, but she brought it up. She said she was waiting for an apology from me. When I laughed, she told me I just don't get how hard it is being a stay-at-home mom. I told her she doesn't even know what a hard job is, and the fact that she calls herself a stay-at-home mom is a joke, and that she's just lazy and selfish. I left, and she told me that I'm not welcome back. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
Rule number 1 of having a Karen for a sister: don't talk to her.
Employee screams at a guy who ends up being the company's CEO. This is actually a story from my mom from a couple of years ago. She works for an energy company in the customer service, taking phone calls, answering questions, and sometimes helping fix simple issues. It had started not too long ago, and she was one of the few first employees, so right from the start, she knew pretty much everyone who worked there, including the CEO, who she describes as a very nice, down-to-earth guy who'd always dress pretty casually, so he'd blend in with everyone else pretty easily. After a couple of months, they started hiring more people to work, including this one guy who was apparently very entitled and considered himself better than everyone. Mom and a few others didn't like him because he was apparently arrogant, always tried to correct others only to be wrong himself, kept making the same mistakes, ignored many rules on the floor, and had a huge temper and would scream at anyone who said something he didn't like. The screaming would 99.9% of the time be something along the lines of, "Who the heck do you think you are to insert whatever someone did or said?" Many complained about him, but the manager at the time was too nice or scared or both to actually do something about him. One day, he was apparently playing games on his phone while at the same time talking to a customer and telling him all kinds of random wrong things when the CEO came to check the floor after a meeting. Seeing this guy, he walked up to him and calmly informed him he wasn't allowed to have his phone out while helping a customer, so could he completely focus on said customer for the moment. Cue the guy literally throwing his headset off, jumping to his feet and screaming in his face, "And who do you think you are to tell me how to do my job?" along with stomping his foot at each syllable. The boss stood there for a moment, obviously in shock, and the guy, thinking he had won, smirked all smugly before the boss pulled a, well, boss move. "Well, I just so happen to be the CEO of this company," he screamed back, even copying the foot stomping. The dumb guy lost the smirk and, according to my mom, went from angry bright red to pure white in half a second. The boss then calmly grabbed the headset, which apparently still had the customer, who heard everything, and apologized for what she heard and just asked her what she needed help with, finished in a minute, and before hanging up, once again apologized and told her the other guy was fired so it wouldn't happen again. As soon as he hung up, he told the other guy that he was serious and he'd better gather his stuff. In the end, the annoying employee was gone. The manager got a talk on dealing with bad employees, and someone baked the boss a cake. Have you ever had a coworker who kept trying to tell you how to do your job? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I did once, but you don't even want to know what I did to her coffee and cigarettes. Yes.
Grandma complied with Grandpa's request for 50 years, much to his chagrin. Something someone said to me today reminded me of this tale, and I thought some of you would appreciate hearing it. So, this is my grandmother's story. My family has been telling the tale for decades. Grandpa himself told it to his daughter's fiancé as a lesson in not understanding his new bride. Grandma told it slightly differently to my mom when she and my father were engaged. This is somewhere between the two versions. It's a lesson in be careful what you wish for, as you just might get it. Personally, I've always thought that it was hilarious. My grandparents were very old school. Grandpa got a job working for John Deere as a teen and worked his way up the ladder to foreman, then manager. Grandma was a typical housewife in the 1950s and was held to typical housewife standards. She was to cook and clean and be prepared to entertain Grandpa's business associates at a moment's notice. It was her job to make sure the kids were taken care of and never got in her husband's way. She was expected to have dinner on the table at 5:30 sharp when he got home from work. Her house and herself were to be impeccably kept at all times, etc. They were progressive and well off enough that Grandma had her own car. She was expected to use it to run the household errands and take the 4 kids to appointments and such. It was important that her husband not be bothered with such things. The household and family were her responsibility. He had a job. Well, one day, Grandpa arrived home from work, and not only was dinner not on the table, but Grandma wasn't even there. The kids, teens at the time, hadn't been fed. Their homework was still on the kitchen table, there were unwashed dishes in the sink, and a dozen other little chores hadn't been done yet. Most importantly, Grandpa was inconvenienced. He had been home just long enough to let his frustration stew into anger when Grandma's car pulled into the driveway. He began shouting at her before she had even had the chance to set down her purse or take off her jacket. He ranted about all the things she hadn't done because she was out running around when she should have been home, taking care of the house and making dinner. He worked very hard all day to provide for this family. Was it too much to ask for a hot dinner when he got home? She'd had a very good reason for not being home, but he never let her tell it, accepting no excuses. But she was a good wife, so she intended to let him vent for a while. Then she would serve him supper and explain what had gone wrong. Then Grandpa messed up. As sometimes happens when we speak in anger, he began to blame the wrong thing for his irritation. He began to blame the car and her access to it. He said something to the effect of, "You don't have any business out driving around anyway. You should be home. I should never have let you start driving in the first place. You shouldn't be driving." "You don't want me to drive?" Grandma asked calmly, retrieving her keys from her purse. "Fine, then I won't drive ever again." And she set those keys on the counter, put her things away, and served dinner. And bless her heart, Grandma stuck with that declaration no matter how much more difficult it made life. Grandpa had to take afternoons off in the middle of the week when a teacher scheduled a meeting. He didn't get a moment's peace on the weekends between grocery trips and taking the kids to activities or doctor's appointments or for haircuts or clothes. He had to drive Grandma to every Saturday salon appointment. Previously, Grandma had taken herself and the kids to church, letting him sleep. Now he had to wake up early on Sundays and take them all himself. Grandpa was nearly as stubborn as his wife. He held out, expecting her to apologize and ask for her keys back. She never did. Instead, she simply rearranged the household schedule so that he could handle all the driving. Months later, after never getting a single weekend to relax, after having dinner pushed back nearly every day because he had to drive someone someplace, he finally gave in and apologized. He tried to tell her that he was wrong and that she should start driving again. He tried to tell her that he now appreciated all she did to make his life easier. He all but begged her to take those keys. I suspect that Grandma had always disliked driving because she never did take back those keys. Nothing Grandpa said or did could convince her to get back behind the wheel. He had said she had no business driving a car and she was going to hold him to that declaration no matter what. For over 50 years, until the day she passed, Grandma never drove a car again for any reason. Not after the kids graduated and moved out, not after Grandpa retired. Even after Grandpa passed in the 80s, she still refused because my husband always said that I shouldn't drive. Kids ask for chocolate over ice cream. Mom complies. This happened earlier today at the grocery store. A mom was in line in front of me with her 2 daughters, neither could have been older than 8, buying a random assortment of items, including roughly a gallon of Neapolitan ice cream. Suddenly, one of the girls looks over at a display of candy bars and her eyes light up. "Mommy, Mommy, I want a chocolate bar." She points to the display. Mom looks over and shakes her head. "No, honey, we're already getting ice cream and you don't need a chocolate bar." The girl grabs one of the bars. "But I want this so much more than I want ice cream." She waves the bar in front of her mom's face. She, the daughter, also pushes one into her sister's hands to get her on board. With both of her daughters now waving candy bars in front of her, she suddenly gets the look. "So, you want candy bars instead of ice cream, is that it?" The daughters are nodding and emphatically saying, Yes, we want the candy bars, not the ice cream." So the mom turns to the cashier and says, "Can you please remove the ice cream? They don't want it." Cashier dutifully clears the ice cream from her order and puts the tub next to the register. She tells the mom her total and is handed the money. The mom starts bagging up her groceries while the kids tear open their candy bars and start devouring their treat. Right as the mom finishes putting the bagged groceries in her cart for the trip out to the car, the kids finish their candy bars, look at the empty wrappers, and then at the tub of ice cream sitting next to the register. Realization dawns in their eyes.
Hey Mom, could we still get the ice cream after all?
Mom has a smirk on her face. You said you didn't want the ice cream. You got the candy bars instead. The daughter, who started the push for candy bars, looks at the small, empty wrapper in her hands and back at the tub of ice cream.
But this is so much smaller than that.
Mom looks back at the ice cream tub and says, "Oh my goodness, you're right. Seems like maybe you did yourself out of a lot of ice cream later in exchange for a bit of chocolate now." She sighs. Isn't that a shame? Daughter tries to turn on the frown.
But Mom, can't you just go back and buy it? It's right there.
She shakes her head. No, sweetie, I already paid for the groceries. It's the next gentleman's turn, meaning me. The cashier had already started scanning my groceries. The daughter takes one last look at the ice cream and their empty wrappers before turning and running away. Not too far. I think they just wanted to not see the ice cream anymore. As soon as they were off, I burst out laughing. Now that's a lesson. Way to go, Mom. She smiled back at me. Something tells me it's a lesson they won't soon forget. Because I'm in such a cheerful mood, I say, "You want me to buy the ice cream so they can have it later? It would be no trouble." She smiles wider and shakes her head. Nope, if I let you do that, they wouldn't learn their lesson, now would they? Moral of the story, be careful what you wish for, kids. You just might get it. What would you rather have right now? Ice cream or candy bars? Please let us know.
Depends, Reddit boy, what kind of candy bars are we talking about?
Entitled professor yells at me when I won't let her student into a bar without an ID. Cast. We've got me, we've got entitled professor, and professor student. I, 21 female, work at an upscale restaurant/bar as an events/social media coordinator and occasional host. I truly love my job and my managers and everything. My restaurant is in a large college town where I also attend, and so we have a large demographic of people coming in. This happened a few weeks ago while I was working as a host that night, and as we are a bar as well, I check IDs, and I'm technically considered a bouncer, which is funny because I'm literally 125 pounds. I also usually have an actual big bouncer with me who comes up from one of our sister bars to help me out with IDs and stuff, but today I did not. Entitled professor comes in, who looks to be in her 60s, with her student who looks to be in her early 20s or so. So I definitely was going to have to card her. Also, under my state's laws, I can only accept the following forms of ID: US state ID or license, US military ID, passports of any country. This does not include foreign IDs and licenses, must be a passport. The conversation goes as follows. Me: Hi, welcome to our restaurant. How are you doing today? Entitled professor:
Hi, this is my PhD student from such and such country, and we just wanted to get a drink.
Note, I did not ask for this info. She literally just told me right off the bat. This is the only reason why I'm mentioning it. Me: Okay, great. Can I see your ID? Looking at the student. She looks a little concerned and goes, I didn't bring an ID. Me: I'm sorry, but the only way I can allow you to drink is for you to present a valid ID. Entitled professor immediately gets defensive and loud and goes,
I've known this girl for 4 years, and she is over 21.
Me: Again, I'm sorry, but I need a valid form of ID. I list all of our valid forms, which is also posted on a sign near the entrance.
She is of age, and I know it and can vouch for her.
Student: I have my undergraduate student ID with me. She begins to take out her undergrad student ID. Not from my school, by the way, not that it matters. And I again tell them that I need a valid form of ID. She then tries to hand me this school ID that has her birthday in the bottom corner, which does say that she's over 21. But again, I cannot accept this.
See? Her ID shows that she's over 21.
I start going into the whole spiel again, but this woman is not having it. Apparently, a school ID is just as legit as a government-issued document to her. But whatever, what do I know? It's not like I check IDs for 7 hours of my shift. Professor is pretty much yelling at me and causing a whole scene in the entrance area at this point.
This is ridiculous. She has shown more than enough to gain entry. I know her very well, and I know she is of age. This is a PhD student here, and we deserve to be served.
Me. Ma'am, I am sorry, but this is the law. I could get into serious trouble, not just with my boss, but with authorities by allowing someone to be served without a valid ID.
I cannot believe this. Student, we're leaving.
She turns to leave, and as she's exiting, she turns back to me and says the most bizarre thing.
Oh, and by the way, that is an accredited university.
Referring to the student ID. I was honestly, just so confused by the whole situation that I don't even say anything back. Again, I would like to reiterate that from the beginning, this lady was hostile and extremely rude. She continuously raised her voice throughout the interaction while I stayed extremely calm and was as professional as could be. And just to let you guys know how hostile she was, there was a group of 3 that had entered right behind her waiting to get ID'd and seated and had listened to the whole interaction, and as soon as the lady left, they asked me, "Are you okay? That lady was awful." So yeah, I told my boss, who also owns the place, and he was very proud of me for standing my ground. I love you, King Julian. Am I the jerk for not wanting my significant other to use noise-canceling headphones? My significant other, male 34, is an avid gamer. He works, he naps, he eats, he games, he sleeps. This isn't the first time we've had this discussion, and I always get told to shut up and that no one will think gaming with noise-canceling headphones is bad and that I'm ridiculous. We have an 18-month-old, Lo. If I need him, urgently or not, and I shout, he can't hear me. If I message him, he doesn't check his phone. I have even tried calling him via phone and he ignores it. Tonight, I really struggled to get Lo to sleep because he's been extremely unsettled and was crying hysterically. We fenced off the gaming room so Lo can't hurt himself, so I can't climb over to get to significant other when I have Lo. It's too awkward. But I am in his peripheral vision of about 1.5 meters to the left. The room doesn't have a door. It's just an open room to the side of the dining room with a 2.5 meter opening. I couldn't shout because I didn't want to scare Lo and upset him further. I even tried throwing soft items at significant other to get his attention, and he's just completely oblivious to everything around him. After about an hour, I managed to settle Lo and get him down, and I informed significant other of my troubles of getting his attention, and all I got was, "Do you have any idea what is going on in my game and what I can hear?" My biggest concern is what if something happens and I fall or hurt myself? Or if something happens to Lo, he won't even know for hours. We could have a car take the entire front of our house off and he probably wouldn't even hear it. Am I the jerk for not wanting my significant other to not use noise-canceling headphones? Edit. I'm not leaving significant other, I just want him to stop using noise-canceling headphones. I asked him to post on here over a month ago, so it could have been from his point of view. But he kept telling me that he wasn't the jerk, so after last night, I bit the bullet and posted myself. He knows how I feel. He knows I want him to grow and be a better man. We are slowly working on things. He created me this Reddit account so that I could use it to talk to people and vent. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her significant other? Please let us know.
This is why you don't have babies with babies.
Am I the jerk for kicking my wife's brother out of my wedding? To start, I just want to mention that my brother-in-law, Dennis, male 42, and I, male 28, don't see eye to eye with each other because we're both very different individuals. He's a bit arrogant and doesn't like to spend time with family. My wife tried to have us spend more time together, but me and Dennis just don't get along. Simple as that. My in-laws are his providers, and they also raise heck on whoever tries to disrespect him. They love me as well, so that's nice, at least I thought. Anyways, so when I visited Dennis to personally hand him my wedding invitation, he told me he may not be attending because he planned to go fishing that day. I couldn't tell if it was a joke, but I didn't care, although this is his sister's wedding. At my wedding, I thought Dennis wasn't coming and his dad said he's gone fishing. My wife was upset until he showed up, but I wasn't happy. I was mad when I saw that he showed up in a t-shirt and shorts, sunglasses and flip-flops. I flipped out and asked him what the heck he was doing. He said it perfectly matches the weather and complained that it's hot and we could have just picked an indoor venue with AC instead. The guests were staring. Dennis said he didn't give a hoot. I pulled him aside and demanded he go change if he still wanted to be at the wedding. My father-in-law gave the "leave him alone" look, and my wife was shocked, but I sternly told him that he needed to have some respect and not wear flip-flops at my wedding. He left and came back in 40 minutes wearing a tuxedo very similar to mine, with the same bow tie and same everything. My best man was the first to see. He was shocked and told me we had a problem. I had it. I immediately walked up to him to stop him from being seen by the guests, asked him if he was crazy, and yelled at him to leave. My in-laws got involved and told me to back off. This isn't my event alone, therefore I have no right to kick their son out for following the rules, and accused me of intentionally excluding him from his sister's wedding. He told his parents to not bother with me, shouting, "He's jealous," in front of my family. I kicked him out and told my in-laws they were next if they tried to bring him back. My in-laws were livid and kept berating me for hours, demanding I apologize for making Dennis miss his only sister's wedding. We haven't talked in a week. My wife says Dennis and I are both jerks. Was I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Dennis? Please let us know.
Wow, talk about Dennis the Menace.
Am I the jerk for not letting my sister make my son's birthday cake? My sister is an aspiring professional baker. She set up a Facebook business for us in 2018 and so far has not been able to build up much of a client/customer base. Part of the reason for this is she isn't the best decorator out there, and sometimes she's downright bad. Before setting up, back in 2017, she did taste and feedback tests with the family. She told us she wanted to know if and where she needed to improve and all of that stuff. Cool. A couple of people told her that she was great and that she should open her business because she'd be great. The rest of us, me, dad, older brother, younger sister, and my husband all mentioned how she needed to lay off on the sugar a bit because wow, was she ruining those cakes. And we mentioned she would need to refine her skills with the decorating side. She asked for specifics and we gave them, especially on the kids' designs because they were downright terrifying, tested on some of our kids. She didn't take it on board though, except for the sugar. She told us at the time we had overreacted to the designs and that we'd see. My sister has had 5 reviews on her profile. 3 of them are 1 star with the same feedback we gave about the appearance of the cakes. One woman had her 2-year-old cry when they saw the cake, and another had her 5-year-old say that they were scared of it. The other one was more angry about it and did not hold back. The other 2 are the 3-star reviews and say that they could have been a lot better. It frustrates my sister. She tries to grow but doesn't listen to feedback. My son is turning 8 this year and it will be his first friend's party due to the circumstances. My sister asked if she could do the cake. I told her we had already ordered one, which is true. She was hurt I wouldn't go to her over another baker. She offered to cover the cancellation fee and I turned her down. Then she got mad. Said how can she build her business if family won't even help her out and give her practice and a portfolio to build. I told her that she should start listening to the feedback she has received instead of pressuring family to become guinea pigs for her inventions. I also suggested she practice without getting an order because it means she can provide a better quality product without using other people's money in celebrations to do it. She told me a good sister would give her the experience and that it would mean so much more to my son to have a cake made by his loving aunt than some random baker. She has me feeling a bit bad because despite her telling me if I don't, I can see she's genuinely hurt we don't like her cakes enough to give her this. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their sister? Please let us know.
Making terrifying cakes is actually really cool. She just needs to find the right client base.
Converted from salary to hourly. Best decision ever. I worked for a mid-sized fashion company with around 150 retail stores nationwide as a maintenance and safety coordinator. 4 months into the job, my manager quit and I picked up everything and was doing fine on my own for years, and I was the only person in charge of maintaining the stores and the alarm systems in all the stores. I did get a pay bump, but not a promotion in title. I put my contact number on every store's emergency contact list just in case the primary contacts, usually the store managers, don't pick up their phones in case of emergencies. And the store managers almost always refuse to pick up calls during off hours, so my phone would ring at least 2 to 3 times every night. 99% of the times are false alarm, usually caused by window brake sensors getting tripped by vibration from a big truck passing by or a leaf hitting the window. I hated it, but had to do it because if no one on the emergency contact list picks up the phone, the alarm company automatically calls the police for dispatch, and there are penalties for false alarms, ranging from $50 to $200 per incident after 2 to 3 freebies, varies by location. In 2017, Department of Labor passed a law requiring all employees making under a certain amount of money to be converted to hourly so they can earn overtime. My salary was $800 short of making the cut. I brought it up with HR, stating that an hourly schedule would actually interfere with my duties and an $800 raise in pay would make everything easier. And HR simply said, "Well, that's too bad and we can't do anything about it at the moment." Well, okay. After that conversation, I put my phone on mute and stopped caring about anything outside of my 9 to 5. In hindsight, life was actually so much easier and better that way, and I'm not sure why I even wanted to stay on salary. Months go by without any serious issues except for the penalties for false alarms starting to pile up. One day, accounting and operations brought me into the office asking what those costs were. I told them what they were, and operations sent out a memo reminding all store managers that safety is of critical importance and they have to pick up calls from alarm companies. No one bothered asking why there was a surge of these additional costs, and I didn't care enough to remind them that it was because of me. Few more months go by, and one morning I woke up to almost 20 missed calls on my cell. Apparently, one of our Florida stores was broken into the night before at around 3 a.m. The store manager tried to get a hold of me because I was the one in charge of requesting/dispatching vendors for things like emergency board up. After an hour of trying to get a hold of me, she eventually started calling up everybody on the hierarchy for help, and I had 6 missed calls from the senior VP of operations alone. Eventually, the director of constructions was able to get a crew to board up the store, but that was almost 3 hours later and everyone was royally upset. Unsurprisingly, the second I stepped into the office, I was called into the office with all the senior management and HR and were asked why I was not there to take care of it. And I simply replied, because I already clocked out. The senior VP of operations was obviously not pleased with that answer and said it was my duty and I needed to be on standby at all times to handle these situations, even during off hours. To which I stated, "Oh, so I should be on call then. In that case, I'll have to work with accounting to get properly compensated for my on-call hours once we have a schedule established." The room went silent and nothing came out of the rather short meeting. Later that afternoon, HR called me into the office again, asking whether I'd like to become salaried again with a pay bump. I said I'll take the pay bump, but I'd rather stay hourly and walked out. They didn't give me the pay bump. Edit. Sorry, I didn't provide what happened next, so here's some closure. I was put on call for a few weeks because it was summer at the time of the incident and HVAC systems kept failing over the weekends in our Florida stores. And again, I was the one to dispatch vendors to fix them. Money was great during that period. Eventually, the director of construction was put on as the emergency contact for off-hour issues and he absolutely hated it. I left the company last year. They had to scramble to get a replacement and hired a maintenance supervisor with an MBA in political science, but no related experience. My last contact from the company was the supervisor asking me what the login credentials were for all the 150 stores' alarm systems. I didn't reply. Karen niece stole my credit card. I'm 22, female. My niece is 16, female, and my sister is 34, female. My niece lives with us at the family home with our parents. My sister is unreachable for the next 2 weeks because she had a vacation planned with her boyfriend who she met on a dating app. I was working online when she asked if she could order food, so I gave her my card. She ordered it while sitting next to me, and the food came and that was it. Well, it wasn't until a few days later that I started getting unknown charges and lost a couple $100. It took a lot of calling around, and I went from calling my bank to these places to wherever could help me. Some of the money I got back, but some had no refunds. I called around more to figure it out and found out it was clothes and makeup products. And since I don't buy these sorts of things, I went to ask my niece first because nobody else in the house buys extravagant stuff like this. I told her if she did it, I at least wanted her to understand that she should have known better. I can't get my sister in touch and niece doesn't work, so I'm out of the money. My niece proceeds to get emotional, says that she just wanted to fit in with her friends because she's doing online summer school. And since she's online, she can't meet more people. And while I can understand that, I barely make enough to save up while I'm paying some bills at home. I plan to let it go until her mother comes back, but I told her I wouldn't be taking her shopping or to friends' places in the meantime after what she did. She calls up her paternal side of the family, who proceed to blast me on social media as the bad aunt, and they said some really mean things too. So, am I the jerk for not wanting to help my niece out after this happened? I can't do much until her mother gets back to handle her, but I am starting to get annoyed by her dad's side attacking me online. Edit. I'm not sure what to exactly do since I can't even get a hold of my sister until she's back. The paternal side of the niece's family were all saying how it was a mistake and she'll learn from it since it was her first time. I withdrew all my money out of that card since it was only a couple of hundred left, so I'm not worried about her doing it again. But I'm kind of getting annoyed by these Instagram or Facebook posts that keep shading me and referring to me as the bad aunt for not being easier on her for her mistakes, as they say. Second edit. As for my sister, this is someone she's been dating for many months now, but I can only talk with her about it once she gets home, since there's no way for me to call her or anything. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you keep buying stuff for your niece after they stole your credit card? Or not? Please let us know.
The only thing I'd give that little thief is a kick in the pants.
Don't grab the staff. She's a black belt. This story took place in the mid-1990s, so I'm a bit fuzzy on the specific details. And of course, names have been changed to protect the innocent as well as the guilty. Onto the story. The characters are me, the manager. We've got cashier, Maria. We've got the grabby customer. And we've got police officers 1 and 2 and the paramedic. Back in my 20s, I worked at a local hardware store that was just down the street from the city university, where I ended up being promoted to store manager. This was my college job. I had a small staff that included several other students, in particular a young lady cashier, Maria, who, aside from being an employee, was also the girlfriend of a friend/classmate of mine, who happened to be the manager of the barbecue restaurant in the same strip mall with us, so I kind of looked out for her. She was the sort of lady who drew attention from her looks and figure, that tended to receive unwanted advances from random customers. This was typically dealt with by a passing comment of, "This is not a dating site," from me to the cashier. We had already worked this out. I wasn't getting after her, I was giving her an escape route. In this shop, the cashier's station was basically a booth with 2 cash registers just at the front door of the store. The break room is in the back room, and you have to walk through the paint department to get to the break room. At her break time, Maria was walking back to the break room to relax and break out her books for class. I was making my rounds through the store, checking inventories, etc., when I heard a polite, "Excuse me?" Some muffled words I couldn't hear. A more irritated, "Excuse me?" Not the kind like, "Please let me pass," but more of like, "What the heck did you just say to me?" Followed by, in quick succession, a scream, a loud oof noise like someone got the wind knocked out of them, a scuffle, a thud, a loud crack, then a lot of unintelligible screaming. I and our floor salesman ran back to the area where the paint shaker was to find a guy we will call Grabby, one of the maintenance staff from the university, laying on the floor, gripping his arm, and yelling how Maria had assaulted him. "Call the paramedics! Call the cops!" Meanwhile, Maria was in shock, just repeating, "Oh my God, I heard him. Please don't fire me." I asked my salesman to call 911 and tend to the guy on the floor. I took Maria back to the office and had her lay out her story for me, knowing that I couldn't capture audio, but I did have very good video of the paint department as it was a high theft/shoplifting area. The store, being in a strip mall with a popular barbecue joint right next door, happened to have police officers having lunch, so the police response was officers in the store before the salesman could even hang up the phone. Officer 1 was sent back to the office to interview me and Maria. He pulled Maria aside, asked her side of the story. My Grabby, apparently, as she was trying to get him by the aisle, blocked her way and muttered to her in a threatening way that he was going to get her after work, which apparently prompted the louder, annoyed, "Excuse me?" He then proceeded to try to grab her, so she grabbed his wrist, spun, and did one of those over-the-shoulder flips and put him on the ground, when she heard something break, and as soon as the guy got his breath back, he started screaming in pain. Officer 1 had her sit down and then proceeded to take my side of the story. I explained the story as I knew it, what I heard and what I saw, and showed him the videotape evidence, and sure enough, you could clearly see the guy lean in, her face sort of crinkles in an annoyed expression, the grab and the flip. She was clearly in self-defense. At this point, the paramedics were working on the guy. He had a huge lump on his head where he hit the floor, and his arm, the one he grabbed her with, was broken. Apparently, he came down on the tile concrete floor pretty badly. Officer 2 came in to report to Officer 1, who I guess was the higher ranking, I don't know. But he says Grabby said that she grabbed him out of the blue and just flipped him and broke his arm because he wouldn't get out of the way fast enough. Long story short, he ended up escorted to the hospital by police to get his arm set and then arrested. Maria was saying she didn't want to press charges, she already hurt him. However, this type of assault, the charges are automatically here. The fallout for Grabby? He was charged and convicted on all counts through a plea deal. He never went to court as the evidence was pretty overwhelming. He was banned for life from that store, fired from his job at the university, ended up divorced as his wife was not very happy about what he did, and the last we knew, he was a guest of the state for at least 5 years. So at least we never had to testify. I might have left out one critical detail here, somewhat intentionally. Maria was a physical education major and was a black belt. We don't go to school here. Hi, first time posting here. When I, male, probably 17 at the time, was in high school in South Carolina, I went to Pennsylvania on spring break with my best friend and his family. They were originally from the Allentown area, but moved to South Carolina in 1993 when we met in the 6th grade. He used to always tell me about going to Hershey Park, Eagles games, 76ers games, and things like that. 2 weeks before our school spring break, on a weekend when I was at his house, his parents asked me if my parents would let me go back with them to help pack up his grandmother's house due to her going in a nursing home. On the 3rd day, myself and Daniel, my best friend, were sitting on the porch when 2 officers had pulled up. Officer 1, why are you not in school? Me, we're on spring break. Officer 2, that's not for another 2 weeks. Me, we're not from here. We live in South Carolina. Daniel, yeah, if you look at the back of my dad's van, you'll see it has South Carolina plates. We're just here to pack up my grandmother's house. Officer 1, what school do you go to? Me, school's name in South Carolina. What school do you two really go to? Daniel, school name in South Carolina. Officer 2, I believe you go to the local school. They always have kids ditching school. Daniel, no, we're really from out of town. Me, yeah, I can show you my driver's license and school ID card. Daniel, I can call my dad to come outside if you don't believe us. Daniel opened the door and calls out for his dad, but he's in the shower and doesn't hear him, and his mom left to go to the store down the block with his sister. Officer 1, we're taking you boys to the school. Me, well then, can I drive? Daniel, I wonder if it's lunchtime at the school. As they're putting Daniel and myself in the car, Daniel's dad comes outside. What are you doing to my boys? Officer 1, taking them to school. Officer 2, you're going to be in trouble for letting these boys ditch school. Dad, we don't live here. We live in South Carolina. They're on their school spring break. We're only here for packing up my mother-in-law's house because she's now in a nursing home. If you looked at the plates on my van, you would have seen it has South Carolina plates on it. Did you ask the boys for their driver's license or school ID cards? At this point, I'm in the back of the car. Me, come on, what's taking so long? I'm ready to go to school. I don't want to miss lunch. Daniel, yeah, come on. I think it's tacos for lunch today, and I love tacos. Officer 2, please step out of the car. Me, but what about our tacos? Dad, boy, get out of the car. What a day that was. Sure do love getting screamed at by a guest's mom. Yeah, so this was a fun one. We were mostly having a chill Monday. Boss brought his dog to work. She and I were hanging out. I ate a tasty burrito and some queso. Day was going by swimmingly. Around 11:30, the HHK is doing outs, and a guy from 219 comes down to the desk to pay for another night, but he hands me a Cash App card. I explained that we don't take them, and apologized that whoever checked him in didn't explain that she made an exception. He leaves and says he's going to talk to his girlfriend to see what they're going to do. At one point, one of the housekeepers tells us that all rooms are vacant, so we figured that 219 must have left. Then at 12:30, the HHK texted me to tell me that 115 was still in the room. The GM/owner went to talk to the person, because they thought their checkout was tomorrow. They were fairly reasonable, so he told them they had to decide by 1 if they wanted to stay or pay for a second night. He went to talk to them again at 1, and they decided to stay. While he was talking to them, the HHK informed him that 219 was still in the room. He went up to 219, knocked. They didn't answer the door, so he opened the door. Inside, he found a girl smoking. She flipped out on him for coming into her room, and he pointed out that it was not in fact her room. The room had stopped being hers 2 hours prior. She said check-in wasn't until 3, so she didn't have to pay until then. He told her no, that's not how this works. I don't know all the details of their conversation, having not been there, but I do know that she yelled at him a lot. Unfortunately, if he called her a peasant lettuce farmer, he didn't share this information with me. He told her they had better pay by 1:30 or we would call the police and have them removed. He came back to the desk to tell me about what had happened, and we laughed about how dumb she was. Like, oh, check-in isn't until 3, so you don't have to pay until then? Well, checkout was at 11, so get out of this room. At 1:20, the girl's boyfriend finally showed up to pay. I assume his girlfriend called him to complain about my boss opening the door, because he started out hostile, but my boss talked some sense into him. He comes over to pay, and he has $60 cash, and the rest on the Cash App card. My boss and I had already agreed that we'd give him one more exception on Cash App card just to get this done with, but would not take it again going forward. But he hadn't known that yet. This dumb jerk disappeared for 2 hours and still didn't have the money. But whatever. I take the $60 and run the Cash App card, and it declines. He calls someone and has them send him more money, and I ran the card again and it went through. It seemed like we were all done dealing with them for today and nothing needed fixing, so the boss decided to head home. An hour later, at around 2:30, the phone rang. Me. This is our hotel. Caller.
Can I speak with a manager?
Me. I'm the manager on duty.
I need to know why a man calling himself the owner went bursting into my daughter's room.
Me. Oh, okay. I can.
My daughter is a small woman. He was a fully grown man, and he just walked into her room.
Me. So what happened was she started to interrupt me again. I don't remember exactly what she said, but she stopped herself and allowed me to continue. So what happened was it was about 1 p.m., 2 hours after checkout. Housekeeping told us that one of the rooms that was supposed to have checked out was still occupied. He went to confirm what they told him. He knocked on the door, no one answered. So he opened the door and she was in the room. So naturally, at this point in the conversation, she started screaming at me about this. Then she apologized, said she shouldn't be taking her anger out on me, then went back to screaming at me some more. She also threatened to call the police, though I have no idea what she expected them to do. Me. I understand you're upset, ma'am, but that room wasn't hers anymore, and she shouldn't have been in the room in the first place.
I think it's BS that this so-called owner just walked right into her room.
Me. Well, I think it's BS that she was sitting there smoking in a room she hadn't paid for. She went back to screaming at me, some more threats about the cops, blah blah blah. She kept screaming the entire time, and I replied, "Okay, ma'am, you go ahead and call them. I'm going to go now. Have a nice day." I hung up on her and picked up my cell phone to call my boss. Me. Bruh, 219's room just called to scream at me about you walking into the room. Boss. Her mom? Me. Yeah, you know, now that I know what her mom is like, what she's like makes more sense. The desk phone started to ring, so I set my phone down and answered the hotel phone. Me. This is our hotel. Same caller.
Let me talk to the owner.
Me. I'm sorry, he's gone for the day. Is there a message I can pass along?
Give me his phone number.
I'm sorry, he doesn't have a number for guests to reach him at.
Well then, take down my number, even though I doubt you will.
I'll take down your number, ma'am. What should I put that you'd like to speak to him about?
That's for me and him to discuss.
I have to write down a reason for him to call you. Otherwise, he's not going to call you. She went back to screaming at me, threatened to call the police, then hung up without ever actually giving me her number. I picked up my phone again. My boss had been able to hear the entire conversation. He had half a mind to either come back to the hotel or call the hotel phone to be transferred to room 219 and put them in their place. But I talked him down and told him that nothing would come out of it. It would just antagonize them further. We agreed that he'd tell them an hour before checkout tomorrow that they have to go, and if they're not gone by checkout, that he'd call the police. If there's an exciting conclusion to this tale, I'll share it tomorrow. Am I the jerk for not giving my friend a home? Me, 32, female, and my husband, 36, male, have a 3-month-old baby. It's been very stressful, and I've had really bad PPD, so it's taken me a while to come to terms with life again. I'm getting there, but still very fragile. I have a friend, Terry, who's 45, female, who I've known for a couple of years. She's been fine. We aren't great friends, but we're okay. She's from Italy, so doesn't have many friends here and came here with her husband. She doesn't work or have any interest in working. Edit. It's unclear if she can work due to her visa, but she has never stated she can't work, just that she actively chooses not to. Edit 2. I asked a mutual friend, and they said that she can legally work and has done so occasional jobs here and there, but didn't want to, so stopped. Me and my husband have recently bought a 4-bedroom house for our growing family. It's really stretched us financially, but will be worth it in the long run. So to the issue. Terry has recently had to leave her husband. Turned out he was doing all kinds of things he shouldn't have been and was horrendous to her. She came to stay with us for a few days after this happened, and it was really intense. I cried most nights as I couldn't support her and manage my own stuff, and she just wanted to be involved in everything when I needed and asked for a bit of space. Eventually, 5 days later, I sat her down and asked her to find somewhere else to stay, as I was really struggling. She was fine with it, and we spoke for a while about why. A friend of hers paid for her to stay in an Airbnb for a month, which is great, but she's now running out of days. She's called me a few times crying, saying she will be homeless and has no one else to rely on, and I need to pay for her Airbnb or give her a room. I've really struggled with this because as much as I want to help a person in need, I really can't live with her, and she's already told a mutual friend that she plans on just staying with us for a year until she has to go home. I spoke to some friends and they are divided on it. Some say I'm the jerk for not offering her a room when we have space, and others have said my mental health is too fragile to manage it. Internet citizens, what say you? Edit and update. Thank you to all of you lovely internet people for all of your kindness. I didn't expect this response, and I feel very reassured that I can look after me and my baby first. A few things to answer some common questions here. 1. Terry doesn't want to go back to Italy until the divorce is sorted out, so she needs to get her stuff and feels this is her home. 2. I discovered from another friend that she was offered a room at someone else's home and declined as they were too social, and she was worried about the global issue. I don't think she'll actually become homeless. I think she'll just have to lower her expectations. 3. I'm very lucky as I have good support, therapy, and medication for PPD. It's still hard, but my family and husband have been amazing. Thank you to everyone wishing me well. 4. I'm reconsidering the friendship with the folks who said I was a bad person for not letting her stay. It does seem a bit off, so I'm not really sure whether I want to continue the friendship. 5. After a chat with my husband, we agreed that we would likely be going low or no contact with Terry for a while. I can make sure she isn't homeless through another friend, but we felt that I just needed to protect my mental health for all of our sakes. Thank you, lovely people. Collectively, you have lifted a weight from my mind and soul. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let Terry live with you or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely not. Terry's what you call a leech, and a very entitled one at that.
No lesson today. I work as a swim instructor for wealthy families. I teach lessons in people's private backyard pools. I am contracted through a company that sets up these lessons for me, and I'm obligated to follow their policies and standards for cancellations and safety. Today, as is the case with many summer days, has been on and off thunderstorms. The majority of my lessons today have been canceled due to unsafe weather conditions. The weather policy is that if you hear thunder, you cannot enter the pool for 30 minutes. Lightning means 45 minutes. Lessons cannot be canceled until within an hour of the lesson due to weather, as things always clear up. Today, I was sitting at home after having canceled my first 4 lessons due to weather. I was texting my next lesson, which was just under an hour away. I let the mom know that the weather radar was showing almost guaranteed large thunderstorms in her area for the entirety of the lesson time. I offered to delay the lesson by half an hour to see if the storm would pass. The mother, seeing nothing but a sunny day outside, rejected my offer and insisted we continue to have the lesson for her kids. As I'm getting ready for the lesson, the mother tries to call me. I was away from my phone, but when I came back, I saw that I had a missed text message. She sees a dark cloud getting closer, so she asked if we can delay the lesson by 15 minutes. I again remind her of our cancellation policy and that if I make it to her house and the lesson has to be canceled, she will still be charged for the full lesson. The mother insists she still wants the lesson because it's a beautiful sunny day and her kids deserve to swim. I tell the mother I'll be there shortly before the lesson. As I'm driving to her house, I'm immediately hit with a horrible torrential downpour. Thunder and lightning all around me, shaking my car. I drive through this for about 15 minutes before hitting clear skies right before arriving to the house. I again text the mother that if I get out of my car and hear thunder, the lesson will have to be canceled and she will have to be charged as I arrived for the lesson at her request. The mother opens her front door to let me in, telling me all she has heard is faint rumbling and the sky is still sunny, so her kids should swim. As I'm walking into her house, we hear a boom of thunder so loud her whole house shakes. I then see lightning strike down probably about a mile away. I told the mother I'm sorry, but these are unsafe conditions. I will not put myself or your kids at risk by getting in a pool of water during a thunderstorm. The mother proceeds to storm outside to the pool where her kids are playing on the step to inform them that their mean instructor won't teach them, so they have to get out of the pool. She then goes back inside to tell her friend who was hanging out with her that
The instructor won't do it.
I once again reminded her of the weather policy and that it is non-negotiable. I also informed her that she will be charged for this lesson as she insisted we have it even at my hesitation for my safety. I then left as she mocked me to her friend. I got in my car and called my supervisor to let her know what had happened. Apparently, this was the final straw for this parent, as she commonly tempted to get previous swim instructors to also swim when there were unsafe weather conditions. She was blacklisted from our company and refunded the additional lessons she had paid for in advance. I'm sorry I wasn't willing to risk my life and my job so that your kids could swim. I am the manager. I commented about my job on another post and it got a lot of upvotes, so I thought I'd tell you a story. I work from home remotely, but I'm kind of like the front desk for sketchy reservations. If the system has flagged your reservation as high risk, I review it and decide if you can stay with us or not. This involves collecting some personal info from the guest, so I usually speak to all these people right before check-in. We manage thousands of property, and most, around 90%, don't have an in-person check-in. I want to tell you about Kendra. Kendra booked a last-minute reservation costing thousands of dollars. She finally responded to our emails and texts on the eve of her arrival date. I went through my normal spiel and collected her information and ran it through our system, and she fails verification. I asked some follow-up questions to determine if maybe she has given me new information that is not in our records, but may be legitimate, and she confirms that she hasn't. With all the red flags I'm seeing, I decide not to allow her the reservation. Kendra.
Then let me speak to your manager. This is insane.
Me. I'm sorry, Kendra. There's no one here who can override my decision, so I won't be getting you a manager. I'm canceling your reservation and sending you a full refund. Kendra goes off on me about not getting her way and then hangs up. I work in a small department with a small team, especially on the night shift. So when she called back, my colleague was busy, so I got the call again. Me. Hi, Kendra. I'm just about done with the refund, but you should have received the cancellation email already. Kendra.
Imhortonable. I know you are scared of getting in trouble, but you need to let someone else answer the phone.
Me. Kendra, we get calls based on the order they are received. I can't pick and choose which calls to take. I really need you to seek accommodations elsewhere. There's nothing we can do for you. Kendra goes off on me again, so I hang up. I go about my tasks, thinking the whole thing is done, until I notice in the chat room that she has called a different department to complain and ask for a manager. I DM the agent and say to transfer her to me. He does, and I get the best response from Kendra. Me. Hi Kendra, Imhortonable again. We still can't host you at our properties. Is there anything else that you needed help with? Kendra. Hangs up. 4 years ago, I was homeless and bankrupt because my mother stole my identity. Today, I bought my first house. 4 years ago, I had my identity stolen by my own mother. She took out loans and credit cards in my name. Somehow the bank allowed this and racked up thousands of dollars in unpaid loans and credit cards. A bank actually sued me, unbeknownst to me, because my mother had her address listed under the loan, and the court granted them a levy against my bank account to take out over $10,000 and put it towards my unpaid mortgage loan. This, along with a ton of credit cards falsely taken out in my name, my credit score plummeted to below 400. I couldn't even get a one-bedroom apartment in the worst city in the state. I was homeless, slept in my car, but then my car broke down and I had to trade it in for a working one. Red, cheaper, and smaller. So I couldn't sleep in my car anymore, not enough room. I got a hotel room, but it quickly became too expensive on my minimum wage budget. I spent about 2 weeks sleeping in the car before I saved up enough money to score a weekly rate with a hotel, which was infested with roaches and filth. I spent about 3 months at the hotel, spending literally everything I had on the weekly charge, plus terrible Chinese takeout food from the Rite Aid nearby. The Chinese guy knew me so well that he would pad my plate full of food. I suppose he could sense my struggle. Finally, after 3 months, I was able to pass a licensure test that allowed me to get a job paying a few extra bucks than minimum wage. The few bucks made a big difference and allowed me to start saving money instead of just dumping it every week. My credit started to slowly go up too, but not much. I was somehow able to score a one-bedroom apartment, literally right across the street from the one that declined me 3 months ago. I still had terrible credit, but I guess he was willing to take a chance on me if I could pay the deposit, which now I could. A few months go by and I start saving more money, but not much. Then I earned my degree about a year later with a few dollars in savings. I was able to get a much better job with a much better salary. It wasn't a crazy amount, but it allowed me to start saving more. I saved every penny, other than for rent, car payments, gas, and food. I didn't even have insurance. I got pulled over and explained the situation to the officer, and miraculously, he let me go. He told me to get insurance though, and about 6 months later, I did. Fast forward 3 years later, after saving every penny and doing literally everything I can to build my credit. Paying off my mother's debts she put in my name, pleading with debt collectors, claiming hardship, and getting reduced amounts to pay. Everything you could imagine. My credit started to slowly go up. I made every payment on time and didn't go above an 18% utilization rate. I wore the same t-shirt and pants to work every day. My coworker commented on it once, and before I could say anything, she goes, "But you probably just have tons of the same shirts, huh? Like Mark Zuckerberg." If only she knew how different. But shout out Zuck for saving me on that one. Fast forward to a few months ago when I started browsing to get a new rental because my landlord is a jerk. I won't go into details, but I'm sure y'all can imagine. I start looking for rentals and they're so expensive, I think, why don't I just buy a house? I laughed. I knew there was no way I could pay a house. A former loser, homeless, bankrupt kid with no family like me owning a home? Forget about it. But I was intrigued, so I called a real estate agent and she told me I needed 20% down payment. Dude, I definitely don't have that. I gave up, but I got interested again. Now with my lease running out after turning a 30 days notice in and my best rental option being a one-bedroom shack for 4 times what it's worth. I called another real estate agent. I told her I don't have much money to put down, and she tells me, "That's okay, you might qualify for an FHA loan." What the heck? What the heck is an FHA loan, I ask. Long story short, I did qualify and was able to look for houses with 3.5% down payment. Wow, truly life-changing. Then I found this beautiful home with a view and snagged it. My realtor was worried it wouldn't be approved for FHA, but it came through, and it was. Thanks everyone for listening. I feel like I've finally gotten out of it. Karen wants to see my phone to make sure I wasn't taking her pics. I'm at the gym today and I'm walking towards an empty squat rack. 10 feet in front of and 1 foot to the right of my rack is another rack that a girl, Belinda, 20, is doing squats on. I went through my workout as normal. After every set, I check my phone for 5 to 20 seconds. I track every single set for every single lift in a spreadsheet to note how much I lifted and for how many reps. Sometimes I need to remind myself what I did last week to make sure I'm progressing. Sometimes I'm just checking the time. Sometimes I'm changing the song on my Spotify. Tonight, specifically, there was a very important basketball game being played, so I wanted to keep up with the score. So I used my phone a lot at the gym. I finished my third set when Belinda turns around and walks up to me with her phone up, yelling,
What are you doing? Creep, stop taking pictures of me.
I'm caught completely off guard, but I explained that I'm just taking notes on what I'm lifting, that I'm not paying attention to her at all. She's being extra loud, so other people are looking at me. Plus, she's recording me, and she demands I go through my pictures and videos to show her what I was recording, and I delete the ones I took of her. I try to again explain I didn't record anything of her at all. She's yelling that if I have nothing to hide, I should have no problem showing her. So I insist on going to gym management. Once at the front, we both explain our stories. She's still recording. The normal gym attendee asks if I'm willing to show her, a neutral third party, my pictures and videos. She also says if I have nothing to hide, it's not a big deal and we can squash it right now. I refuse. I have my own private pictures in there, plus those of my girlfriend. I'm not gonna let anyone force me to show them some BS. I do show her my spreadsheet, which shows it's been revised over 15 times in the last 50 minutes, so that proves what I was using my phone for. That was received well, but they still expected me to prove my innocence. I told them they need to review the cameras. Apparently, only the manager has access to them, so I was told he'd call me before the end of the night, in about an hour. My girlfriend tells me I should have just let them look at my phone because she doesn't mind and it would have cleared this all up, but I mind. I get that someone wouldn't want someone taking pics of them, but violating my privacy to prove I wasn't taking pics of you crosses a line for me. Edit. Just talk to the manager. He checked the footage. He couldn't see what was on my screen in the footage, but he said it looks like I had my phone pointed towards the ground right in front of me the whole time. In his opinion, not high enough to even take a pic of her, and never angled in her direction. Apparently, I was gonna get banned from the gym if the cameras didn't absolve me. And also, I'm not the first person that has been accused by Brenda, but she legit had a creeper before. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have showed them the pictures in your phone or not? Please let us know.
Ooh, this is not a good situation. I can't wait to read what our audience thinks of this.
Entitled mom demands I take her kid to the movies with me and pay for it. A little bit of backstory. I'm a female in her late teens. I still live at home due to mental health problems and family issues. I have another place with another family I stay at when things get too much and I just want to get away. I got to know this family after working in the nursery their kids went to. I became their babysitter that way, and I'm now a very close friend of their mother, who we'll call Mom too, and the dad we'll call Dad too. I'm like family. I see them as my other family. They have 3 small kids, all under the age of 6. I offered to take their oldest daughter, Maya, who's 5, to the movies to a special kids event screening of Moana, for kids ages 3 to 8 with gift bags, sing-along events, etc. Maya has a younger sister, Sila, who's 3, and a younger brother, baby Frankie, who's 16 months. Maya was looking forward to this day so much. She's an amazing big sister with a big heart and the sweetest personality. But sometimes it can be frustrating for her to always have the younger ones included, so I made sure to make this day extra special. I don't have my driver's license yet, so we took the bus and went over to the movie an hour early to get the tickets, pick out a few snacks, etc. We sat at a table about half an hour before they let us into the movie. Maya sat in my lap and playing a game on my phone. It was lovely. Then someone called out Maya's name. We both looked at the woman and I recognized her as Mel, a sweet but sadly very poor woman and a good friend of Mom too. They had just walked in to use the restroom before they would go to catch the bus back home. Mel has 2 daughters herself, a 6-year-old, Lily, and a baby, Frankie's age, Emma. I've babysat for them once before and met Mel a couple of times. She asked if I'd mind watching her daughters while she used the restroom. I didn't mind at all. Lily asked what we were doing, and I explained that we were gonna see Vaiana. Turns out, that was Lily's favorite movie. This was the conversation when Mel came back. Mommy, I wanna watch Vaiana too.
Sure, honey. You can watch it when we get home, while Emma naps.
No, I wanna watch it here like Maya. Can I please? She looked at me, and I explained what the event we were going to was.
I'm sorry, sweetie, but we can't. Emma needs to get home for her nap.
The disappointment on this girl's face just broke me, but she was not having a tantrum or causing a scene. She just said, "Okay, Mama," in her little sad voice. I stood up to hand back Emma. "You know, I wouldn't mind taking Lily with us. It's no problem. I'm sure Maya would love it." She smiled an apologetic smile at me.
That's very kind of you, but I can't afford it. We don't have much money for activities right now, I'm afraid, but thanks for the offer.
"Hey, it's no problem. It's on me."
No, I can't accept that. I would feel bad.
"Please, I insist. It's really no problem. I would love to have her join us." She teared up and pulled me into a huge hug. Her daughter was so excited and jumped into my arms. Mel left, and I walked up to buy another ticket for Lily. That's when a mother and her daughter, who had been there the entire time, stopped me midway. Honestly, I don't know how much of the conversation the entitled mom heard. I just know she heard the last part where I offered to take Lily with me since she spoke up.
My daughter loves Viana too.
"Oh, are you gonna go see it too?"
No, she was just gonna watch another movie. But since you took that woman's kid with you, you can take mine too while I go run my errands.
"What?"
You said you didn't mind taking that kid with you, so why not take mine?
Because I don't know you, and I know her?
Well, if she's comfortable leaving her kid with you, then so am I.
Are you kidding?
No, I am not. It would make it easier for the both of us.
How would it make it easier for me to have another stranger's kid with me?
I meant for my daughter and I. I could go run some errands, knowing she was safe, and my daughter wouldn't watch a movie alone.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't mind, but are you sure she's okay with being left with strangers?
Yes, don't worry, she won't mind. She's watched by strangers all the time.
What's her name and age?
Penelope. We call her Poppy, and she's 6.
If you're sure you're comfortable with this, then fine. It's better than for her to be all on her own. Just be sure to be back here when the movie is over, and go buy the snacks you want her to bring with her.
Wait, are you gonna buy her snacks?
Points at Lily. Yes?
Then you can buy my daughter snacks too.
Lady, I'm doing you a favor here. I'm okay with her following along, but that's all. I'm not paying.
Fine. It's okay. She doesn't need anything. You have plenty already. You can just share.
I sighed and walked over to buy Lily's ticket and snacks. The entitled mom followed me. When I asked if there was a way we could get to sit 4 people next to each other, the worker said it wouldn't be a problem. Then it came to the payment. The worker asked if it was all paid for together. The entitled mom was quick to say yes. I was surprised, thinking she was going to pay for it all as some sort of thank you. Boy, was I wrong. She stood there looking at me, and that's when it clicked. "You want me to pay?" She huffed.
Yes, of course.
I was shocked and bent down to Poppy's level. Just to clarify, Poppy was a sweet, quiet, and very polite girl, and I pray that Mom is not going to mess that up as she grows older. "Sweetie, I'm sorry, but your mommy is not very nice to me, and I can't take you with me when she's being like that. It has nothing to do with you. You seem very sweet, but I do not like your mom."
How dare you talk to my daughter like that?
Well, nothing I'm saying is wrong.
I am being nice to you.
Oh, by demanding me to pay for your daughter's ticket?
But I heard you offering to pay for her ticket.
Yes, because I know her.
Fine, I'll pay half of her ticket.
Nah, that ain't good enough. You said it's all paid for together, and I'm not the one paying.
You want me to pay for that brat's ticket too?
No, of course not. I want you to pay for Lily's ticket and her snacks.
I can't believe this. You can't force me.
Well, I'm not. I told you I'm not paying for your daughter's ticket, and you were the one that said it was all paid for together.
Oh, fine. We are splitting up. I pay for the ticket, and she pays for the rest.
Then the worker spoke up. "Ma'am, if you had just the tiniest bit of unselfishness inside of you, you'd pay for all of this and apologize, or you might just be one of the trashiest people I've ever seen. I've witnessed the entire thing, and this kind girl is giving a kid something her mother is not able to do, due to her not being able to afford it. And you take advantage of that by not only demanding she watch your kid for free, but also demanding that she spend her money on a stranger's kid just because you don't want to pay? You're one of the worst humans and mothers I've ever seen, and you should be ashamed of yourself." Entitled Mom went quiet, and so did I. She didn't say anything else, just reached into her purse, paid with her card, and left. The worker then yelled after her, Have a good day, ma'am. I gave her a massive tip for that. She's my hero. Thanks, Natalie, for being awesome. Anyways, all three girls had a blast and played so well together. Afterwards, the mom stood in the lobby as I held her kid's hand. She grabbed her, handed me a $50 bill, and left without a word. Afterwards, I took both girls to McDonald's. Edit. Did I do the right thing letting Poppy follow along with us? Maybe not. But in that moment, all I could think about was that girl, that she shouldn't be alone in the movie theater. I'd rather have her around me since I'm the only person that I know 100% she'd be safe with. I mean, what are the odds that something could have happened to her if she had been alone in there? Thankfully, nothing happened, and she let me know that it had been the best day of her life. I reported my former landlord for tax fraud as revenge. I'm glad he lost his house. I found this guy on Craigslist a few years ago. I like renting condos from private owners as opposed to renting apartments. Typically, by renting a condo, it's safer. You have more caring residents, you get to have a luxury apartment-style home with all the amenities, and you can negotiate pricing, etc. I am an excellent tenant, and anyone who I have rented from will tell you that. I paid a $1,000 deposit to move into this guy's condo. I was on a year lease. He lives in another state, but we were on the same time zone. On month 8 of my lease, I came home to a door that wouldn't open. I couldn't get the door unlocked for anything. I had 2 keys on me. As much as I tried to turn them, I couldn't. One of the keys even broke in the lock. I waited 2 hours. I called, texted, and emailed my landlord, and he did not pick up. I thought maybe he had someone over to change the locks for some reason. I honestly didn't know what to think and had no one to help me. The lady who lived across from me saw me in distress as she was going into her apartment. I had never seen her, but she asked me if I was okay, and I explained to her that I couldn't get into the apartment. She told me that she knows of an on-call locksmith. She gives me his number. I tell her thanks and reach out to my landlord a few more times. No response. I had no choice but to call the locksmith, plus I had to go to the bathroom. The locksmith arrives and could not get the door unlocked with my key. He says he can replace the lock for like $100. I told him I was renting a condo and couldn't get in touch with the owner and didn't know when would be the next time I could get in touch with him. After he took the lock off, he told me it was faulty. So he replaced the lock. I told the landlord this via email and text and voicemail and told him that I could send him copies of the keys if he wanted. Okay, so fast forward to the end of my lease. I demand that he does a walkthrough with me. He said he wouldn't. I told him that if he didn't do a walkthrough, I would be notifying the condo office, as he did not have permission to sublease by the association. He then had a friend to serve as his proxy to come meet me and walk through the unit. The place was spotless. I know how to clean. I took multiple photos and videos and showed his proxy, who is a police officer, the unit. Actually, they are both police officers who used to work together. We both literally tested all of the appliances, faucets, checked the blinds, carpets, hardwood, everything. His proxy gave me the okay and said that everything looked great. I give his proxy the keys and later that night left for my new city. So fast forward to a month later. I haven't heard from him about my deposit. He ignored all my emails and phone calls. He finally gets back with me 2 months after I move out and has all this ridiculous, made-up crap about how I damaged his unit. Broken blinds, scratches on the hardwood floor. He made it seem like I damaged his floor by getting the lock replaced. He said there were scratches on the outside of his door, rust here and there, broken dishwasher, broken sink, oven was broken dryer. Just all these lies. I would never leave a unit in that condition. He sent me an itemized list for all of the charges that magically came out to be $1,000, the same as my deposit. He was always planning to keep my money. He wanted that money to either ball on it or upgrade his condo. I hated him. I decided I wasn't going to go to the court because I had moved to a different state and live alone, but I thought of something. He rented to me under the table and likely didn't claim my rent payments as earned income. I had all my wire transfers on my bank statement. I had his routing and account number and a copy of his driver's license as we agreed to swap IDs when I signed the lease to make sure I wasn't getting scammed. I found his out-of-state address online, gathered all my bank statements, gathered his bank account numbers, and made a report with the IRS. About a few years later, I check up on things, and that jerk lost his condo and lost everything he owned in bankruptcy. I paid for and downloaded his court records and saw proof that he lost everything, including his condo and cars, and he had his bank account seized. I'm not sure if he went to jail or anything, but I'm so glad that jerk got his karma. He stole money from me that I gave him to rent a condo, and he ends up losing that same condo to bankruptcy. Forget him and anyone who calls him a friend. He can rot for all I care. Have you ever had a landlord who tried to take advantage of you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for insisting that my wife's friends stay in a hotel? Most of this took place a few years ago, but it's needed for context. A few years ago, my wife's best friend got a partner, and it was a big deal as he had never had a long-term partner before. But as he lives quite a few hours away, a weekend visit seemed like the best way to meet. Our spare room has a bookshelf with the remaining items of my nerdy collection. I had sold most of it to help buy us the house, and these were items that were the most valuable to me sentimentally and value-wise. I don't mind people staying in the room, I just ask them to be mindful of my stuff. So he and his partner came for a weekend. Things were going perfectly fine. His boyfriend was very shy, but seemed like a nice guy. Unfortunately, I got the news that my gran got a really bad fall, and it caused an aneurysm. She was given an estimate of a few days before she would pass. I was obviously upset and went to see her in the hospital. My wife wanted to come with me, so we made sure her friends were okay and left them to it late afternoon. We were in the hospital for about 8 hours as she slipped in and out of consciousness and seemed in terrible pain. Finally, we decided to go home and get some rest before going back the next day. When we got there are some clothes on the floor in the living room, and our rabbit is looking very strange and huddled in a corner. A few minutes later, her friends come running out of the bathroom with towels and disappear upstairs to the spare room. At that moment, I didn't care, as I was exhausted and I went to bed. In the morning, my wife went to explain that we would be going back to the hospital, and they said that was great because the new boyfriend needed to go to the ER as he had a really bad pain. That worked out as we didn't know what to do with them till they could get their train. This meant we could drop them off as it was the same hospital and the train station was nearby. We got the all clear and they left. My gran hung on for a week before passing, thankfully in peace. However, when cleaning the spare room, I found that several of my things had been tampered with. 3 model kits that were broken, not unfixable. But the worst was that a mint inbox vintage transformer had been opened. I was incredibly upset by this and ended up ranting about how they were selfish jerks. My wife said she didn't want to complain to them because she didn't want them thinking I don't approve of their lifestyle, which I replied that I don't care what they think. This was about their lack of respect. I calmed down and eventually just dropped it. However, it's now 2 years later and they want to come stay again now that restrictions are easing off. I said that was fine, but they would need to get a hotel as I'm not having them stay in the spare room. My wife thinks I'm being the jerk for this and didn't want to tell them to do that. Am I the jerk here? Edit. Okay, so initially I cut down the post for word count, but people are asking about the weird bit I left in about coming home and the rabbit. Okay, so it seems like they had been hooking up in the living room. Also, the boyfriend's injury seemed to be a cut that he was worried would be infected. Now, our rabbit can get bitey when he's spooked, so it seems he got in a fright when he saw what they were doing and bit the boyfriend in a really bad spot. Edit 2. Thanks for the support, everyone. It's helped me clear my head and feel like I'm definitely seeing things clearly. I had a talk with my wife when she got home, and she was a bit less freaked out. I think I was angry when she told me they want to come back. I reminded her of all the antics, and she started to sound much more understanding. She asked me to help her craft a message to them to explain things. We listed our problems with their last visit, and she also said she hadn't actually confirmed anything with them yet. We will see what their reply is. Edit. We got a reply back, and it's very apologetic. They apparently forgot to bring it up due to them being worried about the infected cut, but it seems that the model kits were accidentally knocked over by a bag and they meant to tell me. Also, the boyfriend has ADHD and really bad impulse control. He had recently changed his meds and was a bit out of sorts, which I could see he definitely was a bit odd. Anyway, he picked up one of my transformers and flicked the box open before he knew what he was doing. There was cut tape, so it wasn't as easy as it sounds to just flick open. He never actually pulled the toy out and stopped and put it right back away, not realizing that the box got a bit of damage from it. They have said that they wanted to stay at a hotel anyway, as my wife is pregnant and they didn't want to be an inconvenience like last time. Also, maybe fear of the rabbit. They also said they would compensate me for the damages, but I've not actually told them how much the figure was worth. I think they would freak out when they realize, but I wouldn't charge them full cost, just what the loss of value is. Obviously, no talk of the weird other stuff, but this is a good start. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let them come stay at your house again or not? Please let us know.
No, don't touch my stuff, bruh. And my living room is definitely not the place for you to be getting it on.
Call the maintenance guy to open the gate? Will do. Years ago, I lived in a trailer park, manufactured home community. They were nice trailers, but they were still trailers. And during a summer, when I inherited my dad's little fishing boat, I was informed I wasn't allowed to park the boat in our driveway. It fit completely in the driveway and did not hang out onto the road. When I mentioned that this rule was nowhere in my lease, they said, "Oh, the rules just changed this year. It'll be on your next lease." And it was. I asked what they expected me to do with my boat, and they said, "There's a community lot at the end of the block where tenants are expected to park their trailers and boats. You can park it there for free." Great, that'll free up space in my driveway then. I decided to play along instead of fighting it, and when I went to get my boat out of the lot that Saturday, the gate was locked. I impatiently stomp over to the office, telling them I wasn't told the gate would be locked, and I wasn't given a key to get my boat out. "Oh, the residents don't get keys to that gate." Hold up, you're requiring me to park my boat there, but you're not giving me access to my boat? All you have to do is call the park maintenance guy when you need to get something out, and he'll come open it up. Now, I tried to argue with her about how inconvenient that is for literally everyone involved, and how it would be so much simpler to just make a bunch of copies of the key and sign one over to each person who has to keep something there. Heck, let me borrow the key right now, and I'll go down to the hardware store and I will pay to get my own copy made. You could even make us all sign for the keys, with a fee if we lose it. Sir, we don't do that for security reasons. If there are multiple keys floating around out there, anyone could get access to your boat. I decided to ignore how stupid that was, since if my boat was in my driveway where I really wanted it, anyone could get access to it, and that's what tongue lunks are for. I smiled and said, "You know what? You're right. I wasn't thinking clearly. Please give me the phone number for the maintenance guy, and I will just give him a call when I need to get my boat out." I went home and checked the weather for that weekend. Warm, sunny, and calm all Sunday. Sounds like a perfect day for fishing. And you know what? I want to make the most out of my fishing trip, so I'm going to get an early start. I woke up at 5 in the morning, got myself all ready, packed my gear into the back of my truck, and drove on over to the trailer lot. I then called the maintenance guy, who answers with a groggy and clearly still half asleep, "Hello?" Me, in my best crap-eating chipper voice. "Good morning. I was told I have to call you to get my trailer out of the lot." Him. "It's like 5 in the morning. You're going to have to wait." Me. "No, sir. I've got things to do today, and I need to get an early start, so I'm going to need to get into that lot now." Him, with noticeable irritation in his voice. "Give me 5 minutes." About 10 minutes later, he pulls up to the gate, very visibly disgruntled about the whole thing. I just give him a smile and a "Good morning." Him, as he's unlocking the gate. "You need your trailer to move tree limbs or something?" Me. "Oh no, my boat's on it, and I need it for fishing." "That couldn't wait until a decent hour?" "No, my life doesn't revolve around your sleep schedule. Of course, if I had my own key to this gate, you wouldn't need to be here at all." I had a great day fishing. When I got back, the gate was no longer locked, and I never saw a lock on it again. Edit. To be clear, part of the reason I didn't feel too horrible about inconveniencing the maintenance guy is because he was already on my bad side after a run-in about a year earlier when he tried to steal my wife's parrot cage and was generally just useless at his job as a maintenance man anyway. This incident wasn't his fault, and he didn't deserve my maliciousness in this instant, but I'm also not losing any sleep over it. A jerk ditched his date and left me the best tip ever. About 10 years ago, I was managing an Asian fusion restaurant. It was a weekday, so we didn't have a bartender, so I would handle the bar. Our bar was separate from the dining room, so I would go between, making all the mixed drinks and checking on the servers and kitchen. You know, manager stuff. A couple sat down at the bar and ordered a couple of drinks and appetizers. I placed the order and make the drinks, and then a server had an issue that took me a while to solve. We had a good team there, so another server saw that my apps were up and took them out for me. She then came and found me and said, "I took your apps to the bar," but she looks upset. She said everything was fine, but you might want to check on her. From one problem to another, I think. Back at the bar, he was nowhere to be seen, and she, we will call her Kay, was typing angrily on her phone. Her drink, a Cosmo, was empty and his was barely touched. The apps were untouched. I prided myself on knowing what my customers wanted before they did, so started mixing her another drink. She put the phone down and asked for another Cosmo just as I was garnishing. I said, "You mean this one?" and set it in front of her. She gave me that surprised look that I absolutely loved as a server. Then she asked, "He left, didn't he?" "I don't know," I responded, "but I can find out." I did check later, and the hostess said he bailed only a few minutes after they got there. "You would not believe what that jerk asked me." Kay then explained that that was supposed to be their first date. They had met through friends and had been talking for some time, but this was the first time for the two of them to go out on just the two of them. After hellos, the first thing he did was ask, "Am I getting lucky tonight?" Needless to say, she reacted negatively to this. He said he needed to go to the bathroom and proceeded to leave the building. Karen asked for another drink. I said, "Sure, but you do need to eat." It was a slow night, and I figured Kay could use some company, so I spent most of my time that night in the bar chit-chatting and polishing glasses and such. Eventually, I said something, and I saw an abrupt change in her demeanor. Never before had I seen such a clear indication that a woman was interested in me. She was attractive, and I was flattered. She ended up hanging out until close, having 5 or 6 drinks and a full meal in 4 hours. And she wasn't very small, so she was probably feeling pretty good, but not drunk. I called her a cab, and when she left, she asked if I would come by later. I said, "No, you are ahead of me on the drinks, but here is my number, and if you still feel the same way tomorrow, I would love to take you out sometime." We ended up dating for a year and a half until we had an amicable breakup. We still talk often and are good friends. Edit. This blew up while I was cooking dinner for the family. It's okay it didn't work out in the end. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the kiddos I have now. Thank you for all of the good feels, everyone. Am I the jerk for not letting my nephew keep the switch my husband gave him? I'm 24, female, and my husband, who's male, 26, tends to perceive small talks and questions as requests. I don't really know how to explain it, but you have to be very specific with the things you ask him for/to do. For example, if you say that you like his phone and that you plan to get the same one, he's going to gift it to you immediately because he truly believes that's how the world works. It's confusing, but that's how his parents used to communicate with him, and that's how he learned to respond. We are improving a lot, and I know he has the biggest heart, but sadly, this has led to people taking advantage of him and taking his things away because he has a hard time saying no. Also, he just doesn't comprehend at first, but if you try to explain to him, he would, eventually, understand that you just want to talk and not ask him for anything. However, my family thinks that this is perfect, especially my sister and my brother-in-law, since my husband comes from a well-off family. They feel entitled to ask him for any luxury they want to have. An elegant dinner in a fancy restaurant with all paid? Ask OP's husband. Any material thing they want to have? Ask OP's husband. Thanks to that, I had to block them on my husband's phone to make sure they can only talk to him in my presence, meaning that I can control the things they ask for and just say no. They think that I'm the jerk because I'm enjoying all his money, and that I'm selfish because we're a family and we should share it all. I just ignore them because I'm not wasting his money, and I'm always trying to help him. I know that he loves my family, and if it were for him, he would give them the world. But it's not fair. He isn't an ATM. Yesterday, my sister, who's 31, and brother-in-law, who's 38, and my nephew, who's 8, came to hang out with us, which seemed rare, but okay. I let it go because my husband was so happy to see them, and he really adores our nephew. So while they all were playing, my sister expected me to be their maid because they deserve a day in my life. We ended up arguing over this, and my husband took out nephew away. They, again, called me a selfish jerk, and I ended up asking them to leave and called my nephew. When he came back into the room, he had my husband's switch, with everything he had in his hands. He said that my husband gave it to him, which again, I was confused, so I asked him if that was true, and he said that my nephew asked him if he could keep it and that he said yes. I told my nephew that he couldn't keep it because that belonged to my husband and reminded him of his uncle's condition, that maybe we could give him one for Christmas. My sister and brother-in-law started to argue that if he gave it to him, then he could keep it, and tried to leave with it. I was honestly tired at this point and just took the switch back and told them to stop behaving like beggars in front of their kid. Edit. OMG, I didn't expect this to blow up as it did. It's late now, but I will try to answer some of you tomorrow. However, there's something I want to address. My husband's family are not bad people, and his brother loves him with all his heart. Please stop acting as if trusting them is the biggest error of my life. Guys, it's not. They adore him.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.